We're in the intro. Stand by for countdown.
Okay, today's joke during the scroll. I wanted to thank everyone for sticking with me while I figured out the meaning of many. It means a lot. And this is where you laugh. Thank you. They've continually gotten worse since we started this.
You're really good. You're up in your game. Your game's up.
I am accepting requests for jokes. You can email those to me at your convenience.
$20 seconds out.
Yeah, I do not have that. So I keep asking. We don't have the IT.
Stand by. 10,
Thank you.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Good morning and welcome to August 17, Wednesday Board of County Commission meeting. I'm Nicole Gibbs, Community Relations Specialist. The 2023 recommended budget for Sedgwick County is available for review on our website. The public has an opportunity to give feedback online or at our public budget hearing next Wednesday, August 24th at 9 a.m. This hearing will take place on the third floor of the Sedgwick County Courthouse. We have some good news to share in two areas of our Sedgwick County government. U.S. Aging, the National Organization for Area Agencies on Aging, has awarded our Department of Aging with the 2022 Innovators Award. The award was given to the Going Home program that helps transition people from nursing homes to a community-based home of their choice. Almost every year for the past 18, Sedgwick County Department of Aging has won an award like this for its stellar service to seniors and their families. Also, our Division of Finance has also been recognized for its sound financial performance. The experts at Fitch Ratings have again reaffirmed our high credit rating of AA+. This is significant because it gives Sedgwick County lower interest rates for our capital projects and saves taxpayer money. It should also reassure citizens that the county is investing their money wisely. Congrats to the staff and thank you for all you do for Sedgwick County. Now, Stephanie Birmingham will come up and give you an update on Recovery Connect. Stephanie?
Morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. Speaking of money, the county, as you know, is using much of its ARPA funding, the American Rescue Plan Act, to fund our Recovery Connect initiative. And again, that's to help folks that are still struggling after the pandemic. I did get a report on highlights from the launch of the program through July. I wanted to share those with you. As far as referrals or direct requests for help, we so far, year to date, have heard from over 1,000 individuals needing help. Small businesses have reached out over 400 times and nonprofits 300 times plus. We've also held over 100 meetings and informational sessions. That can be training, educational opportunities, grant writing workshops, and our number in attendance, I think that's impressive, 2,400. When we talk to these folks one-on-one, when our navigators assess their needs, these are the things that come up time and again. For individuals, it's help paying their mortgage, their rent, utilities, and property taxes. Small businesses are looking for technical and operational assistance. That could be staffing, it could be equipment to help folks work remotely. Nonprofits are looking for help applying for grants, finding them, and then how to write a good grant proposal. This is one of the resources that we are recommending. I like to highlight a few each time just to emphasize how much help is out there. Habitat for Humanity has a home repair program. We know them for building new homes for low-income families. They also do home repairs. So a homeowner, you have to be current on your mortgage payments and your taxes. You fill out an application and a house assessment is done that determines that there is in fact a need for a small scale improvement or a large scale, and then based on your income, Habitat for Humanity will determine how much of that you have to pay back. It could be a zero interest loan, a sliding scale loan, or a grant. And you do have to put in 4 hours of sweat equity. So whether that's actual manpower at the job site or maybe cleaning up, they want you to have something at stake here. And the repairs can include almost anything from your roofing, guttering, siding, plumbing, electrical. It could be outdoor work or accessibility modifications. Maybe you need a wheelchair ramp or wider doorways. So again, this is out there and available for folks. If you or someone you know could benefit from this, we encourage you to call Recovery Connect at that phone number or email them. It is a free service, and you'd be surprised how much help is still available. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't see any questions. Thank you, Stephanie.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you again, Stephanie. Commissioners, taking a look at today's agenda, there will be proclamations declaring National Nonprofit Day and a second one declaring U.S. Heartland Global Leadership Day. There will be a presentation of the mini MPA certificate recipients, a zoning change request in District 1, a discussion of the 2023 proposed budget. With that, Chairman, I turn the meeting over to you.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it. We have a full house today. I want to welcome everyone that's joining us in the meeting room today and those that are joining us online. One additional thing I'd like to add before we start the meeting is that Manager Stoltz and I have a meeting today that we have to attend at 12:30. So as we go through, depending on where we're at in the agenda, I may have to ask the commissioners if we can adjust some of the things so we can hit the really, really critical things that we have to vote on today. So just stand by for a little bit of adjustments depending on where we're at. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order for Wednesday, August 17th, 2022. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Invocation to be led by Ron Proct, Olivet Baptist Church. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Father, we come before you this morning on behalf of our Board of Commissioners. We ask for wisdom, discernment, and courage to make the decisions necessary that will provide safety and direction for the citizens who elected them to this important responsibility. Thank you for their willingness to serve. We pray that they would have wisdom as they consider the items presented for them for decisions today. Give them your perspective on how best to serve the people of our county, even those who politically may disagree with them and who may be opposed to their ideas. We ask for courage for them to speak out their convictions while honoring those whose convictions might be in conflict. Help them respond to questions from the citizens they represent with honesty and openness. Help the commissioners to speak with wisdom and respect as they discuss the items on today's agenda, and help them handle with grace and respect any harsh words directed at them. Father, I pray that those who speak to this body will address them with kindness and respect, because we're neighbors and we live in this community together. Father, we pray for unity, even in the diversity of opinions held by the commissioners and those who would address them. And we pray for those in our community who are the most vulnerable among us, and pray that you protect them and those who serve them. Father, we thank you for first responders, men and women who go to the crisis rather than away from it. We pray for protection for them and their families as they provide services to the people in our community. Father, schools are starting back, and we ask for protection for our children as they learn and grow. We ask you to keep them safe from harm. We pray for the teachers in our community who invest their lives in our children and youth. Thank you for their desire to impact future generations. We ask for wisdom to teach things which will prepare our students to be productive, compassionate citizens as they mature and grow. We ask you to teach us how to disagree without demeaning those who differ with us. Give our leaders locally, statewide, and nationally the courage of their convictions, and at the same time, a gentleness to those who hold different beliefs and convictions. Teach us to speak words that heal and build up rather than ostracize and tear down. We're grateful, Father, for the blessing of living in this nation and in this community, and we ask your blessing on those who are in positions of leadership and influence. As we move toward national elections, we ask for truth to prevail, for kindness and honesty to be clearly expressed, and for men and women of goodwill to be elected to represent us locally, statewide, and nationally. Give us strength to deal kindly with those with whom we disagree, and may you be honored through our lives. These things we humbly ask in your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Lopez.
Present.
Chairman Dennis.
Present. Next item, please.
Public agenda.
Thank you. We received one comment on public agenda last night, and I believe also earlier in the week, all the commissioners received an email talking about the budget. So I move that we receive and file those who were received online.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. We also have a number of individuals that have signed up to speak on public comments today. You'll each have 5 minutes, and I'll ask you to state your name for the record when you approach the podium. Our first speaker is Dane Jennings. You'll have 5 minutes. State your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Dane Jennings. I live at 1201 South Brookhaven, which is a 5-acre property at the southwest corner of Lincoln and Brookhaven.
Oh, Mr. Jennings, I don't want to disturb you, but this is one that we're going to hear today. Would you rather speak now or when we hear that?
Sir, it's up to you. I'd rather speak when we hear it, frankly.
Okay, you're welcome to continue. I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity if you wanted to speak during the portion.
During the portion, I would rather speak.
Okay, then I will call you again. Sorry, I should have picked that up. The next speaker is Mary Dean. Please approach the podium, state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. Good morning.
Good morning. Chairman Dennis, commissioners, hope everyone is doing well. My name is Mary Dean, and I'm here to speak on the incompetence of Sedgwick County DA, District Attorney Mark Bennett. Facts. Law enforcement personnel from the Wichita Police Department and Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office have shot and killed 19 people since District Attorney Mark Bennett took office in 2013. Mark Bennett, citing Kansas law, has declined to file charges against officers in 16 of those fatalities. In his 9-year tenure, Sedgwick County District Attorney has yet to prosecute a police officer killing. In 15 cases, the officers were on duty. In one other, the shooting took place inside the home of an off-duty officer. 3 other fatal shootings are under review by his office. Facts. In most of the 15 police-involved fatalities, Bennett ends his review of the cases with the same statement. Under Kansas law and the facts of the case, I conclude that no criminal charges will be filed against officers and deputies. How sad for the families, including Cedric Lofton's. Facts. State Representative John Carmichael, a Democrat from Wichita, said the Stand Your Ground law in Kansas was adopted as an extension to the right up to self-defense. Instead, these laws are being used, at least by our district attorney, as a sword, as an additional statutory right given for law enforcement to use deadly force, he said, and it is very, very concerning. It should be concerning because what threat did Cedric Lofton pose by 4 adults that held him down for over 30 minutes while he suffocated to death? Facts. Bennett's record in cases involving officers who shoot and kill people and the state's self-defense law have come under scrutiny since January after the prosecutor denied to file charges in the death of Cedric Lofton. Facts. Lawmakers are overdue for a review of the Stand Your Ground law, and I'm hoping that when they reconvene in January this year, they said that they're going to review and hopefully revise that law. Facts. Money committed for the task force committee. In total, the commissioner said that 9 of the 14 key areas have been addressed or in the process of being addressed. with 6,700 of the estimated $1,449,539 needed for all of them to be funded so far. Question. Where are most of the monies allocated to be spent on? This is a quote from one of our NAACP Vice President, LaWanda DeShazer, second president of the NAACP in Wichita branch, said Bennett's record shows a need that a special prosecutor in cases when law enforcement officers kill civilians. DeShazer added that Bennett's consistent use of self-defense or qualified immunity does not help any perception of perceived conflicts. Even with the C.J. Lofton case, Bennett said no charges. When the video was released, we saw that there was no threat, or at the very least, the threat was subdued. Several state legislators have publicly stated the law was not applied correctly. And we just had one officer that killed, a WP officer that killed Andrew Finch. Of course, that he don't have no immunity. Hello. Request. These are my requests. My request is that Sedgwick County would co-sponsor with the city of Wichita, as you did with the task force, in the amount of $50,000 for a benefit concert on behalf of Sedgwick Lofton, aimed at June 2023, where monies raised would go to nonprofit organizations such as Bryce Graham, Launchpad, Coach Mason of CHD, Charles Knox, Team of Hard Knocks Wrestling Club, Dana McFall, Legacy of Nagasi. These organizations don't receive the recognition and enough funds to expand their program because the larger agencies like ComCare are targeted for the large grants and donations. As a former member of the Sedgwick County Health Board, I know for a fact that Black children are not targeted to receive any benefits from said funds, but are used as numbers to get funding. Launchpad, CHD, Team of Hard Knocks Wrestling Club, and Legacy of Nagasi are serving children in the 67208 and the 67214 zip codes. And these organizations are doing great work in targeting those children who have been traumatized and suffering with mental health issues. But with more funds available, these organizations could help bring more needed awareness of children suffering from mental health issues so that there will not be another fatality like Sedgwick Lofton. 2, my request is that Sedgwick Lofton's Day is recognized by Sedgwick County in partnership with the city of Wichita every year of the month of September, the 26th day, starting 2023. 3, my request is that I have a meeting as soon as possible with Commissioner Lacey Cruz and County Manager Tom Stoltz to discuss my said request. Any questions?
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
No questions for you, Ms. Mary Dean. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm happy to meet with you whenever you'd like. I actually did meet with some folks from the state of Kansas around the Kansas music ecosystem, and one of their focuses is public health and racial justice. And so if the county or the city won't step up to fund a benefit concert, perhaps there is money at the state of Kansas, perhaps there are other avenues that we can look toward. So I appreciate your continued advocacy, and I look forward to meeting with you soon.
County Manager Tom Stoltz, is that a possibility?
Yeah, be glad to meet with you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Shirley Fisher. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Shirley Fisher, and I'm representing the Northeast Senior Center on East 21st Street. And I wanted to talk just a little bit. There's going to be people following me that will have questions to ask, but I just wanted to talk about the importance of having a good, effective senior center in our area. We do have a lot of needs there that are for the facility, and I would like to ask some of the other commissioners. I know that Commissioner Lacey has come out to see and just observe what goes on in our center, and there are needs that are the facility needs repairs, they need updating. And I'm here representing the Northeast Center, but there are other centers in Wichita, senior centers, that also need some attention. And I'd like to ask everyone who's here representing the Northeast Center to stand, please. Thank you all. These men and women came to represent what we think is very important. I want to just tell you a little bit about my history. I am a registered nurse. I have been a registered nurse for 46 or 47 years. I retired last year, and I'm a very active person, and the senior center has been very good for me. I initially started attending the exercise programs there, and now I'm teaching one of the exercise programs as well. The important movement is important to us as older people, and active lifestyles are important to us. We need to have it for our health, and we know that people attending health centers and senior centers are able to function better, as well as physically and mentally. And we also know that it keeps them out of the hospital. We know that it is important for us to stay as active as we can, as long as we can. So I'm here representing the Northeast Center because I think that is important, and we need attention there. But also all of the senior centers in Wichita need some kind of attention. And I would like to ask once again that as commissioners that you come out and see what goes on in the center, and just observe and come out and talk to the coordinators of the centers. And also I'd like to talk to you about the importance of us as citizens of Sedgwick County, as taxpayers, as homeowners. We want better for ourselves. And you as commissioners can decide in your budgets, in our budgets, because we're all a part of Sedgwick County, where that funding goes. And we think it's important for you to prioritize your senior citizens, because your senior citizens are a very vital part of Wichita. Any questions?
Thank you. I don't see any questions.
Okay.
I understand that Frankie Connolly signed up but does not want to speak. Is that true?
Yes, that's me. It's on the same topic, and she's just about said what I was going to say.
Okay. We'll call Marvin Stone up, please. State your name for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Marvin Stone, lifelong citizen of Wichita, and I'm coming for the Northeast Center. I have a grave concern about what's going on with the county and how they manage the funds. As I said, I have lived at my address at 2309 East Murdoch for over 60-some years, and have been active in the community. And My concern is that, and it had been brought up before, is that before you make any kind of decisions as far as the Northeast Center, I think some of you really do need to visit, since you are the commissioners and have charge of the funds. Basically, what I'd like to find out is where the unused funds for the 2022, where that's being spent, because looking around at Northeast Center, it definitely is not being spent there. We need that help, and we would hope that you would be sincere in your concern for the citizens of Wichita, and especially at our center. So I invite you to come and look at this facility. I don't think it's just the total responsibility of our one commissioner, Lacey Cruz, to come and look. You need to look at it because you make the decisions. So do you have any questions for me?
I don't see any questions at the time. Thank you very much.
All right.
Next speaker is Hazel Carlos. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Hazel Carles, and I'm also a member at the Northeast Center, 2121 East 21st Street. And I have issues and concerns also. As a senior, those who are seniors, we are the backbone that have built this country. We worked hard. We didn't have all these little computers and stuff that most of your younger generation have, okay? We did the dirt work, okay? So I'm representing the seniors, okay? And also at the senior center, it is vital that we have upgraded equipment, upgraded buildings, better lighting, better floors. Things need, any building that you have and utilize, it does need to be upgraded to keep it running and functional. So my concerns are, if we have money on the table, why not utilize it? And there is money that's, in my opinion, if we don't utilize it, it'll get sent back. That doesn't set good for no one. It's not going to help no one. So there are issues with pay scales. There is seniors, anybody have a job, you want to get paid. According to the regular pay now and according to inflation, everything needs to be revitalized, regraded, looked at, upgraded. So with the senior center that we work in, that we utilize, equipment is bad, kitchen area is bad, flooring is bad, roofing is bad, lighting is bad. You have to keep on top of things to keep the upgrade. If you want your senior citizens to utilize equipment, the equipment that we have also need to be upgraded and updated. We need to look at the reevaluating all of the issues in all the centers, not just ours, but all of them. If we use them, things will break down. So opposed to sending money back, let's find a way to utilize the money. Any questions? I think my 5 minutes is up.
I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Denise Gamble. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
Good morning.
Morning.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Unlike my speakers before me, I haven't been here all my life. I've only been here 2 years. I moved here 2 years ago, right when the COVID was shutting everything down, and got a sweet little house. And typically, I was very, very happy here, but I was finding difficulty making friends and going places. And my doctor said, "You need to go to your senior center." So that very day, I went over to the Northeast Senior Center and signed up. And I have availed myself mainly of the craft room. And in the year that I've been there, nothing that needs to be repaired has been repaired. And that caused me, with my experience of teaching in Topeka, Kansas, and also teaching in Liberal, Kansas, and then being the director of the library at Seward County Community College in Liberal, Kansas, to wonder just how everything was organized. Because no one was more shocked than I to discover that the Northeast Senior Center, which is smack dab in the middle of the city, it seems to me, is under the auspices of the county and not the city. And that was certainly a surprise, but I do know that Wichita has developed in various and sundry ways. But that got me to wondering, isn't there a general county business, building and grounds unit of some sort that can come around and do maintenance things on these buildings? In our craft room, one corner, the entire ceiling has dropped down. And I guess that happened before I arrived. But since we're doing crafts, having all the ballasts not functioning properly, the vibrating of the lights is kind of a mess too. And I kept thinking, well, they'll come and put in new ballasts. They'll come and put in new ballasts. Now, I know this just seems very, very minuscule to you, and on the scheme of things, it might very well be, but my question is, what is the Wichita, Kansas county policy for maintaining buildings? Y'all have a huge, huge inventory of buildings. Who is in charge of that? I'm guessing that I'm not really sure. I need to know more about Wichita. But I'd like to know when the last inspection of our building was, from a maintaining and improving point of view. When did this inspection take place, and who did it? Because nothing is getting done, and it strikes me as these are things that are that could be done fairly easily. Now, I will acknowledge, if you come in the front door of our building, the lighting is absolutely abhorrent, and I know that Ms. Cruz commented about that at one of the recent meetings, because she came out and visited us all and recognized that as a problem, because it isn't very inviting. And I think that we might address that. Others have mentioned the floors. Quite frankly, since I spend all my time in the craft room, I can only tell you about issues there. And there the issues are ceiling repairs and the lighting issues. So, can you tell me who inspected the building and what auspices did they come under?
Ma'am, that building does not belong to Sedgwick County.
To whom does it belong?
Beg your pardon?
Who owns it?
Services.
A private company.
So let me.
Is this the usual policy for all the senior centers around Sedgwick County?
That one company owns the 4 senior centers.
4 seniors. Oh, that's good to know. Do you know who they are? Who is this company?
Maybe Commissioner Cruz does. Let her speak.
Thank you. I was going to wait until everybody had talked. Is there another?
No.
Okay. So the building is operated by Senior Services. So the thing that we're talking about today is the $500,000 of money that was allocated by this commission last year.
Yes.
We had one recommendation come from Aging that the original allocation totaled $180,000 of the $500,000. That money was piecemealed like this: $100,000 to address infrastructure needs, $30,000 to fund food boxes, $40,000 for hearing aids, and $10,000 for eyeglasses. Again, totaling $180,000. They brought back, after much discussion, after much many emails that came to my inbox around why we weren't allocating the entire $500,000, question I had myself. And then the new recommendation for the $500,000 was a transit vehicle of $135,000. Food boxes was increased from $30,000 to $50,000. Hearing aids was increased from $40,000 to $130,000. Eyeglasses was increased from $10,000 to $60,000. And then the infrastructure needs was now recategorized to utility assistance of $125,000. So that is the total of the $500,000. So the reason really for this discussion today, and I'm so glad that you guys are all here. Thank you guys for showing up. Patricia, I know you didn't speak, but thank you, Marvin, and Shirley, Hazel, and Denise for being here. Because what we really have is, Tom, again, how were these recommendations really made? That's my main question. Why is it now all of a sudden, if we have infrastructure needs that are clear and present, I mean, these are safety concerns. I mean, someone could be sitting doing crafts and the ceiling fall on their head. That's a safety concern. We have the grounds maintenance that is also a safety concern because people, the unhoused community, those who are suffering from addiction, sleep in these areas where the grounds are really providing cover for them. Now, that's a whole nother, issue in itself, but having a senior being able to leave at 5 o'clock in, when it starts to get dark at that time, that's a real concern. So I want to know, and I've asked this question, and the reason why I'm bringing this again today is, where did we come up with how much money was going to be allocated for these buckets? What was the type of research that was done by Senior Service or by our aging department that said, okay, we have $60,000 that we need to put in eyeglasses? Now, there's no doubt that the need is vast for hearing aids and eyeglasses. I'm not trying to diminish that. But when I go to a senior center and it's dark, for me, my eyes are 40 years old, it was dark when I walked in. So working in senior living for the majority of my private sector career, lighting is important. You got to be able to see. And that was the quote that we received from Decker Electric was $21,000 to replace, because this lighting has not been addressed in multiple years. So that's really the main question. But in addition, as well, the multi-purpose senior level funding that we've been talking about, in my first ever budget meeting, the room was packed full of seniors, and this funding level was still the same, and it's been like this for I don't know how many years, and I've been asking for 4 years to do something different with this. Haven't received anything. That's why I'm bringing it here today, because I'm really kind of tired of asking the questions and not receiving any sort of answer. So thank you, Shirley. We will get you the answers around, not Shirley, Denise, excuse me. I think there's got to be a collaboration, obviously, with the building owner and working with them for maintenance. But if we have $500,000 allocated for senior services, and then we get a recommendation, what is it based upon? How are they making these recommendations when we clearly have some real safety concerns at one senior center, and that's just one of, I believe, 17. So this could be, I mean, we could probably spend the whole $500,000 on infrastructure needs that could just make sure that these centers are safe. So that's really my main question around making sure that if we have to have this money spent and allocated by the end of this year, it's a few months away, and so that's what I really want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence in putting the money in buckets that are going to have the biggest impact for those seniors in our community.
Did you say Decker was the name of the company that owns for?
No, that was the that was the bid that we got for the lighting. Mm-hmm.
Do we know the name of the company?
Senior Services.
Senior Services.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, see, that's news to me, but I've only been here 2 years, so I do appreciate, but I do encourage, because it seems like something is kind of a hiccup in the way buildings are being maintained. And if they're not under the auspices of the county commission, then we need to know where to go to complain. And if you could find that out, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of points. And again, you can call me later. I actually have the information you're looking for. I'll share it with you privately. If that's okay. If you want to go to KSS, you got to go to kSSOS.org.
Hold a minute.
Go to
.org, okay.
kSSOS.org. You can look up the name of the business. It's Senior Services Inc., INC, and you can see the contact and name and information of the person who owns that facility.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm just nosy enough. I will.
And I think you should. That's great. I'm really glad you're here. And by the way, the one comment we got online was the same topic. So, you know that I did receive another note besides the folks that spoke today. I have one other person who had spoken on the same topic through the email. This is not a new topic for me. I've been working on this issue since 2016. And I don't know how much time, I don't have much time because we're short on time today, but this is a really big topic.
It is.
And it's not easy to explain quickly, and I don't really want to spend much time on this right this minute because I don't have that time. But this goes back to the aging mill levy question back in 1982. So long before time you came to Wichita, this was the issue that started funding from Sedgwick County. We levy a small tax. We provide a subsidy. Primarily, we try to grant that money out to service programs. There's lots of reasons why this is not working correctly. My personal opinion is we need to go back and we need to redo the question. We need to clean up our definitions. I have a very robust and comprehensive solution to this. I've been working with folks behind the scenes, and I have a great platform, if you will, to fix this problem, but it's going to be difficult. So I need to work with folks like yourself to move these ideas forward, and the idea is going to require some legislation. So we need to fix this and fix it long term. But just to reflect on one little part of what you said, back in 1982 when this began, Wichita actually stopped funding senior centers. Now, Derby does fund senior centers, and so does, I think, Bel Air, and so does Mays, and on it goes. So these other senior centers do get some subsidies from the cities that they're in.
From the city? From
the cities.
Okay.
So Sedgwick County partners with the senior centers. These are private businesses, as the chairman mentioned. Sometimes they're in government buildings, but they're not because of Sedgwick County. They're inside of a city building, potentially. But every senior center across the entire county usually has some small user fees. They get some subsidy from the county, and then they usually get some money from the city that they're in. But the ones in Wichita are not getting that funding, and this has been going on for a long time, so it's nothing new. There are some huge challenges in senior centers, and I think the only way to really fix this and move away from the politics of this is to start the process over again, and that's what I'd like to do going forward. So I have a very good plan. I'll share it with you. I'm trying to get my information out. So thank you for coming today.
Well, and I apologize to everybody for taking more than my share of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Move to receive and file. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes of July 27th, 2022.
Thank you. Commissioners, everyone's had an opportunity to review the minutes from July 27th and also the minutes from August 3rd. Move to approve both. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Next item, please.
Proclamations. Item C, proclamation declaring National Nonprofit Day.
Thank you. I have asked Commissioner Cruz to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Chairman. Whereas National Nonprofit Day recognizes the goals and positive impacts nonprofits have on communities and the world. And whereas Kansas has 13,365 501c3s employing 93,793 people, Kansas nonprofit workers make up 8% of the workforce. And whereas many of the nonprofits were essential in the early phases of the pandemic and provided out-of-the-box services to their clients. And whereas Kansas ranks 13th in volunteerism nationally, and volunteers provide services in many nonprofits and serve on their boards of directors. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Lacey Cruz, on behalf of Chairman David T. Dennis and the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do recognize August 17th, 2022 as National Nonprofit Day in Sedgwick County and ask the citizens to show appreciation for many staff and volunteers working selflessly in nonprofit organizations to help others to consider volunteering themselves. Chairman, with that, I will make a motion we adopt the proclamation.
Thank you. I'll second that. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner? Commissioner Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez? Chairman Dennis?
Aye.
And here to accept the proclamation is Cindy Miles, CEO of Kansas Nonprofit Chamber. Want to say a few things?
Welcome, Cindy.
A few words for us?
Good morning. I just want to express my appreciation for the Sedgwick County Commission recognizing the National Nonprofit Day. Our nonprofit organizations, well, the concept of nonprofit organizations started back in 1741. And nonprofit organizations have been forming since then around the world, doing fantastic work that ranges from providing museums, cultural arts, social services. Certainly senior centers is one of the things that nonprofit organizations oversee. So we're very appreciative of the work that they've done. Not only the people that work for nonprofit organizations, but certainly those volunteers. And I know as I look around this room, I know a number of you all serve on nonprofit boards. I'd be curious to have anybody else in the room that either works for, volunteers for, is served by a nonprofit organization to either stand up or raise your hand. So yes, I mean, their impact is huge, but again, just want to express my appreciation for the proclamation today. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Meitzner.
Cindy, thank you for being here and spearheading this proclamation. And you do great work, and I am a personal big fan of many of the nonprofits, and I serve a number of them before I was ever elected, and after I'm gone, I will continue to serve on the nonprofits. And I would encourage everybody that there's such a selection of nonprofit that would match your heart and soul and maybe your financial scenario and what do they say, talent and all those things that you can donate to. But so Cindy has access to all the nonprofits in this area. And if you just called and said, this is my interest, I'm sure that you'd be able to match somebody up with a nonprofit.
Absolutely. And thank you for your service and your kind words, Commissioner Meitzner.
All right, Cindy. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Cindy. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item D, proclamation declaring U.S. Heartland Global Leadership Day.
Thank you. I'd like to read the following proclamation. Whereas Sedgwick County is a collection of globally connected communities with relationships with countries and communities around the world, as well as maintaining a wide variety of global relationships. And whereas Kansas agricultural exports contribute to America's global effort to fighting hunger and poverty, they support 283,000 jobs and contribute $5.7 billion to the Kansas economy. And whereas colleges and universities in Sedgwick County, including Wichita State University, Friends University, Newman University, and Wichita Technical Institute, together enroll over 8,911 international students per year, contributing nearly $250 million to the Kansas economy. And whereas the work of America's diplomats and development professionals, many from Sedgwick County who are on the front lines around the world, help protect our citizens here at home. And whereas since 1961, over 2,855 Peace Corps volunteers from Kansas have served overseas. And whereas the leadership through investments in diplomacy and global development is critical to protect the health, security, and economic interests of Sedgwick County citizens. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Chairman David T. Dennis, and the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim August 30th, 2022 as Heartland Global Leadership Day. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Move to approve. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Thank you. I don't believe anyone is here. They're coming in later this month. There is a conference at Cargill later this month. Congressman Estes will be attending, and so I don't know how many commissioners have seen an invitation, but it's something that I plan on attending. So I just wanted to bring that up. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business, item E, presentation of the mini MPA certificates.
Good morning, Dr. Walker.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Dennis, and thank you, Commissioners. This is a celebration of graduates of the mini MPA. The county sent 10 people to participate in the mini MPA, which is a mini version of the MPA. So we learned from each other. We learned from a capstone project, which mirrors what we do in the regular MPA program on sustainability. I remember the video with the floating trash in the Ark River and the solutions to that. We also had a group looking at the work of the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition, the important work of that coalition of ComCare and the need for more services. The county is doing so many important things in the community, and we thank you for that and for their service. So we're going to present their plaques. They can hang them on their wall now. There are a number of different departments that are represented here, including my personal favorite, noxious weeds, facilities, ComCare, HR, who am I missing? The clerk's office, purchasing, facilities. Don't say EMS. Jonathan's going to get you. Emergency management. So a lot of departments are represented, and we're pleased to recognize them in this way. Oops, I forgot Mercy. Dr. Umari is going to present the plaques. She's actually the coordinator. She's the brains behind the operation.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. I would call, when I call your name, you come out here and get a handshake and a picture. Oh, outside, okay. Gladys Williams. And if they're not here, somebody can accept the plaque on their behalf. Okay? Mac Forey. Congratulations, Mac. I had to take a picture outside. Okay. Katie Asbury. Kendall Ewing. Congratulations. Alisa Tipton. Alisa. Peter Sawell. Congratulations. Katie Breyer. Jonathan Moore. Yulita Lee Breyer. Barry. Congratulations. Isabella Hatfield. Thank you very much for your time. All the participants, please, would like to take a group picture outside. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you all.
I want to thank the Hugo Wall School of Public Affairs for providing this opportunity for the staff here in Sedgwick County. It enhances their leadership capabilities, and it's a great opportunity for each and every one of them. So I urge those that have not received an mini MPA, make sure that you apply next year so that we can recognize you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Move to receive and file. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call a roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz. Aye. Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item F, PUD 2022-00014, zone change request in the county from SF20 single-family residential to PUD planned unit development to allow for commercial and residential land uses generally located on the southwest corner of South 159th Street East and East Kellogg US 54-400.
Morning, Scott.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department, for the record. So this item is being presented today because there were valid protests against the application. The application is a request, as you heard, for rezoning from SF20 single-family residential to PUD planned unit development, which is essentially custom zoning. A little bit about the property. The subject site is generally located at the southwest corner of 159th and Kellogg, which you can see here on the aerial. It's approximately 122 acres in size and is currently developed with a single-family home and detached ranch/farm buildings. The majority of the property is in agricultural or ranch use, and you again can see that on the aerial here. In terms of the request is to rezone the subject site again to planned unit development, which again is custom zoning. The applicant is requesting the rezoning in order to develop it with a variety of residential and commercial uses. And I've got some graphics that will provide additional detail on that, but they have emphasized flexibility in their proposal. The staff report for this case provides additional details about development standards, screening and landscaping, and signage standards. And we can go through that if there are any questions about it. In terms of context, directly north of the subject site is Kellogg, and beyond Kellogg, properties are in the city of Wichita. Those properties, some of them are zoned PUD, which again is a different custom zoning in that area, or CUP, Community Unit Plan, which generally applies to commercial uses. The PUD property is developed with an electronic billboard sign and retail sales of landscaping stone. The CUP properties are currently undeveloped. To the east of the subject site, across 159th Street, the properties are in the city of Andover, which again, of course, is in Butler County. They're zoned commercial and residential, and they're developed with a variety of things, some of which are a wholesale fireworks store, RV, vehicle dealer, suburban residential development, and a large lot residential property. Properties to the south of this subject site are in the city of Wichita. They're zoned SF5 and developed, some of them are developed with single-family residential, and others are developed or are undeveloped and in agricultural use. And you can see that in the aerial here. Properties to the west of the subject site are in the city of Wichita, zoned for single-family residential and developed with single-family residential. In terms of review, on July 7th, the Planning Commission considered this application and recommended approval unanimously 11-0, subject to the staff recommendation. Now, at the Planning Commission meeting, there were a number of comments that were made about the project, and there were 3 changes that were proposed by the applicant at the Planning Commission meeting in order to be able to address some of the concerns that were expressed by neighbors. And those 3 things include the following. 1, that the hedgerow along the south and west boundaries of Parcel 4, which is generally in the southwest corner of this property, should have would be maintained, that the hedgerow would be maintained, provided that the vegetation could be pruned and removed to provide necessary street or utility access. Second thing that was added was that Parcel 4, which again is in this southwest corner, should have a 200-foot buffer along the south and west boundaries, which is designated only for single-family residential use. So that would prevent duplexes, multifamily housing from being developed there. And again, these are things that were proposed by the applicant and their agent at the Planning Commission meeting. And the third thing was that a golf course would be permitted throughout the entire PUD, including within that 200-foot buffer. And I believe that's because they wanted the flexibility to be able to develop the property, of course, with a golf course. So at that meeting, at the Planning Commission meeting, several members of the public spoke in opposition. In general, the concerns regarded the loss of the hedgerow, loss of open space, increase in traffic, noise, light pollution, and possible decreases in property values. And again, the 3 things that I went through were things that the property owner has proposed in order to help address some of those. So that was on July 7th. On July 18th, the CAB, Citizen Advisory Board for District 1, considered the application. They recommended approval of the request by a 5-0 vote, so unanimous, subject to staff recommendations with the addition of the provisions recommended by MAPC, which I've described earlier. 2 members of the public spoke in opposition to the request at that hearing. The general concerns were the same as those expressed during the Planning Commission meeting. Citizens did remark that they appreciated the actions by the applicant regarding the provision to maintain the hedgerow along the boundaries of Parcel 4, which again I'll show you in a graphic, and the buffer of single-family residential, again, on that parcel. In terms of protest, 2 protest petitions were submitted in opposition to the application. One was inside the protest area and one was outside the protest area. And I've got a graphic that will show that the percentage of the area in the protest area represented by that protest does not exceed the minimum 20% threshold by the state. Therefore, the zone change request can be approved with a simple majority vote or 3 of 5. In terms of commission action, the recommended action is to adopt the findings of the MAPC, authorize the chairman to sign the prepared resolution, and this would require a simple majority, again, 3 of 5 votes. Other alternatives that you have are to deny the application by making alternative findings and override the Planning Commission recommendation. This would require a 2/3 majority or 4 out of 5 votes. The other alternative that you have is to return the case to the MAPC for further consideration with a statement specifying the basis for returning it there, and this would require a simple majority vote. So with that, I'm going to pause, and then I will take you through some of the graphics and photos associated with the case.
Certainly. First of all, I want to make sure that any commissioners had ex parte contact have an opportunity to declare that at this time.
Yeah, Commissioner, it's in the district that I represent, and yes, I've had numerous ex parte conversations and emails with both the developers and many of the citizens and neighbors along there.
Thank you. Any other ex parte contact?
Just, Chairman, I've had very little. In fact, I'm trying to remember. I'm dealing with some post-surgery right now, so I'm trying to think. I don't think I have any that I can think of specifically, but I vaguely remember one, so I better say I had one. I had one. There you go. I had one. Thank you. I knew I had one. Thank you.
Very good. I do not recall ever having ex parte on this subject.
I have not had any ex parte communication that I'm aware of. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. You can go ahead and continue then.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So here's the aerial of the subject site. Again, roughly 122 acres in size. This is the zoning map. Now, Andover and Butler County are immediately across 159th Street, so their zoning is not represented in this map and is shown as white. But what you can see is that the areas within Sedgwick County, predominantly SF5, which is the white areas, PUD, which is the gray areas, and the CUP, which is in the red areas. This is a map of the floodplains in the area. You can see that the floodplains constitute a large area or portion of the subject site, and those are addressed as part of the zoning parcels, and the floodways themselves have been placed into reserves, which we'll see in another graphic that follows here. This is the map from the Comprehensive Plan Future Growth Concept Map. It shows both residential and employment located in this area. This is a graphic that was submitted by the applicant and their agent, and it describes in general the parcels. I've got a more finite map that you'll see in just a moment. But in general, what you can see is that they are planning and applying for flexibility for commercial, predominantly in the corners and to the east, possibly residential or commercial in this area. Residential down in the southwest corner. This is the parcel 4 that was predominantly mentioned in the prior report, and then flexible uses, commercial or residential, up in the northwest. And again, you can see the floodway coming through the property. So here is what has been submitted as part of the plan unit development. So there's a graphic that accompanies the text, and this is the graphic that has been submitted. You can see the different zoning parcels, and again, these are zoning parcels, not necessarily property parcels. So you can see parcel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, which is here, is actually a cell tower that already exists. So there is a cell tower on the property. So again, you can see that the language is that these would be either commercial or residential, most likely commercial, that this one would be again, residential or commercial. And then the one down south, parcel 4 in the southwest corner, would be limited only to residential. And again, this is the one with the 200-foot buffer that will only allow single-family residential in that buffer. The next graphic is the protest map. Again, there were 2 valid protests that were submitted for this case. You can see the blue, which represents a protest that was valid but was outside the official protest area, which was, again, set up by state law. And then you can see the red one, which is a valid protest submitted within the protest area, which accounted for less than, 0.45% of the protest area. Again, this one is similar to some other cases that you've seen, which it borders the city of Wichita, so you can see that it has a 200-foot perimeter around the property, but when it gets to the unincorporated county, it expands to 1,000 feet, and that's why you see that irregular shape for the protest area. Here's some photos from the site. So I believe this is the fireworks sales located directly to the east. Some of the residences, again, to the east. This is the property that's undeveloped to the south. Some of the residences to the south. This is looking at the site. You can see the cell tower that's already existing on the property. This is on the subject site looking to the west, and you can see the hedgerow. And then back to the aerial graphic. So with that, I will stand for any questions. I'll also note that the agent for the applicant is also here in the audience.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for Scott? Seeing none, applicant or agent, would you like to speak? Maureen, state your name for the record.
Certainly. Good morning, Brian Lindeback, MKEC Engineering, 411 North Webb Road, on behalf of the owners and applicant. We are in agreement with the staff comments and the approvals that took place. I think probably the only notable item is that we had asked that it be approved as per the CAB recommendations on the July 18th meeting. There was a slight change from the staff report to what was approved at that meeting. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. I don't see any questions at the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll turn it to the public. I do have Dane Jennings that I promised would give an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr.
Please
Chairman.
state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes.
I will. My name is Dane Jennings. My address is 1201 South Brookhaven. I have the 5-acre property that is at the southwest corner of Lincoln and Brookhaven. We've been told as we have been going through this that any objection we might have should be based on technical or legal issues. However, we know that Mr. Stevens and Mr. Clark are very high-end developers, very qualified developers, and we know that they're not going to make any technical or legal mistakes in their development for sure. So the only currency we have to exchange is emotional or practical. My concerns, and I think shared with others in the community, are two. Well, one is the general language concerning the hedgerow and the utilities. As the Planning Commission noted that the hedgerows and the developers conceded that the hedgerows would be maintained except for access to utilities. I can tell you on the south hedgerow, the utility easement is south of the hedgerow. So in order to get to the utility easement, they have to go through the hedgerow. And I'm wondering if could be more specific language that would define how they access the utilities through the hedgerow without destroying the hedgerow. Maybe it's perpendicular to the hedgerow, not parallel to it, because the easement is south of the south hedgerow. The other concern I have is the relative to the construction of the property. The property values after the property is developed is arguable. It could increase property values because these are very high-end, very sophisticated developers. But you've got 122 acres of land. It's going to take years to get that property developed. And while that property is developed, we also have the Kellogg expansion going on. So there's going to be a lot of complication as this goes through. My concern is construction traffic. As the Kellogg expansion is going through, there are only 3 ways into this property, all through the neighborhoods. There are 3 stub streets, and you've got dump trucks, you've got road graders, you've got all the construction equipment, and there's no way in other than through neighborhoods. And I don't know the authorities, but to the east is Butler County. And any kind of soil removal or soil addition, I don't know if that has to go west to Sedgwick County or can go to Butler County. But if it has to go strictly to Sedgwick County, there's no way out because of the Kellogg expansion development. I would like to see some kind of a restriction where the developers have to build a construction-only entry and exit from the property. Otherwise, we're going to have dump trucks. We're going to have all the road graders, all the construction, all the traffic going through some very quiet neighborhoods. It's going to be very disruptive, and I don't know the condition of the roads in order to handle that kind of traffic. That was the end of my comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Commissioner Meitzner.
Yeah, Mr. Jennings, so you own the land directly south and on the east border?
That's correct. I have 500 footage. I have 500 feet of footage on that hedgerow, on the south hedgerow. That's correct.
So you own that on this picture. the lower right-hand corner, basically.
No, just go to the west a little bit. Go to the left. Keep going. Right at that curve, right there.
Right.
And I have 5 acres there with about 500
Oh,
foot
okay,
of
you own
frontage.
the 5 acres right there.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Do you live on that also?
I do.
Okay.
I've lived there 20 years.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your comments. Can I want to, Brian, can I ask Brian, represents the developer? And do you know Mr. Clark and Mr.?
I do not. I know who they are, obviously. They're very well established. They're very professional. They're very good. They know what they're doing. Right.
Thank you, yeah. I'll just ask, Brian, can you, I'm not familiar enough to know hedgerow versus easements and
Sure.
utilities. Is that
Yeah, well,
assumed?
yeah, just, I guess for one point of clarification is, as far as construction traffic for the highway projects, there's been no agreements in place for any such construction traffic to traverse this property. Furthermore, I would state that, there's a half mile on the north side of access, and then there's another half mile of access on 159th, and then there's another quarter mile of access on the south side there. So there's ample access for construction activity to occur if there was to be such agreement outside of the neighborhood area. I think that's an important point to note.
I think that came up during our CAB meeting is
Sure.
access.
And as far as the utilities and the trees, we've this segment from roughly, parcel 4 that you saw on an earlier slide, from here on down and around this perimeter, we've stated and written into the zoning of the PUD that those trees will be preserved. Certainly, from time to time, there'll need to be utility connections for water, sewer, stormwater. So we don't know where those connections are or going to be at this time, but we kept that in as a reservation to allow those activities to occur. Certainly, if trees are removed for those connections, we have provisions in the PUD that allow for trees to be rehabbed in those areas to maintain that screen. So we've been very thankful for the respect that the developer has given to the surrounding properties, including the surrounding properties into Butler County. I think that's important to note, that not only just Sedgwick County, but also Butler County.
Right. I think, Brian, if I recall in the CAB meeting, there was discussion because there'll be, during the massive construction that's going to happen on Kellogg, there all includes that. They usually do first part of those construction projects is they build access roads on the outside of the main road, and then they tear up the main road. So there will be an access road running all along that north side of this development, of which logic says there will be entryways into this, either permanent or temporary.
Right.
Into this. Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And we did provide provisions for access controls in the PUD document itself,
Right.
and of course further when the property is subdivided and platted.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yep, thank you.
I hope, Mr. Jennings, that helps explain a little bit for you on your question. So,
Somewhat, yes.
okay. All right. Well, and thanks for your comments respecting the developers. Brian's group does a great job. I'm familiar with them for years, and obviously I'm familiar as well with the developers themselves. And I agree. They've not even the storage units. They don't even do. They do them very first class, very good stuff. So I think if this thing proceeds, I'm not sure there's a time frame of how fast or how slow they're going to work. They don't know for sure from my conversations with them, but I know it'll be tedious, and they will make their decisions. And maybe you can reach me at any time, Mr. Jennings, and I'll just tell you, well, I've heard this or that. I'm not in control once it's approved. I mean, they do the final platting and all that. That just happens on its own. But be glad to connect you with Brian if you have any questions. You do own a significant chunk of property there, I see. Kind of surprised you didn't file a protest petition, but that's all right. It's okay.
Frankly, Mr. Clark and Mr. Stevens, how am I going to protest? I mean, realistically.
Okay, well,
So,
all right.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your respect. Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience like to speak on public comments on this zoning request? Please approach the podium, state your name for the record.
Yeah, I didn't sign up, but I appreciate that. My name is Michael McFerrin. I live at 1110 South Sagebrush Street on the west side of the property line. And I echo Mr. Jennings' comments. My primary concern is the maintaining the hedgerow. I like my privacy. I don't want to see that hedgerow get torn down. I know they promise it's not going to, but I know when things get started, utilities are going to be put in. Are they going to be put in my yard? Are they going to have to connect to the main sewer in my yard? Is the tree row in my backyard going to have to be torn down? I don't know. I haven't seen the platting. That really concerns me. And again, I appreciate what the developers and the agent have done to help us out, but I don't know if the language is strong enough to maintain that hedgerow. So if they tear it down and they have to replace it, how long is it going to take for that hedgerow to grow back? Those trees to grow tall enough. Right now, I'm looking. I look to the east out of my backyard and I just see a field and my tree line. When all this gets built, am I going to see all these houses behind me? I don't know. But anyway, and the other thing is, like Mr. Jennings said, is the traffic coming in and out of there. It's going to be crazy with the Kellogg construction, the dump trucks and all that. I don't know how it's going to work. It kind of worries me. So anyway, those are my comments, and I appreciate you letting me speak, even though I didn't sign up. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Mr. McCarron, and good to see you again.
Yeah.
We visited at length with our CAB members, and you, again, I appreciate the dignity and respect that you addressed everybody. And Commissioner Howell, this is the email that you received.
Yeah, and I spoke at your impromptu meeting out at the...
So I actually did speak with you at our, I have a bullet points discussion. You showed up. We had a great discussion there.
Right.
I remember it greatly now.
Yeah.
But thanks for the reminder, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Scott.
Yes, thank you, sir. What I'd like to offer up in hopes that it helps everyone here with the discussion on this item is that if you look at the actual PUD text, there will be item number 4 on that is landscaping. And item E, which is the one I think that's been referred to quite a bit so far in the discussion, is that for parcel 4 specifically, and let me see if I can go to that graphic. For parcel 4, it says that it would not require a landscape plan or guaranteed plans, provided that the hedgerow is maintained, the existing live tree row within 20 feet of the west and southwest boundaries of parcel 4, which we can see constitutes the southwest of this, shall be maintained where adjoining existing residential lots, with the exception that pruning is permitted and vegetation may be removed where utility connections and street connections are required at the time of platting. So what that does is that provides a guarantee that the hedgerow will be maintained, except for, as has been mentioned, for utilities and street connections. However, the street connections and the utility connections will be identified during the platting process, so that should protect the interest of individuals, saying that that it's not going to be removed in a significant amount except for what's agreed to during the platting, which I would expect would be where those connections are going to come in. And I'm looking back to Brian, he's nodding his head, yes. In addition, I would also point out that under Section 6 on the PUD is screening. Item D is screening between parcels 3 and 4, and so they've also provided additional language about how specifically to address the screening between 3 and 4, depending on how parcel number 3 develops. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, Scott, you point out some nice areas. It's on page 21 of our agenda, item F, if you wanted to have further, you can look at that up online, but what he points out, items 4 landscaping, and 6 screening are, that's where you were quoting from?
That's correct, sir.
Right.
And
Thank
it's the specific language
Okay.
that would be approved today as part of the PUD. So this would be the governing language for this property.
Okay. No questions?
Thank you. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to say, I'm looking at the MAPC minutes, and there was some verbatim discussion from some of the speakers this morning. And I actually see some of the actually different concerns in here, but one of the concerns you had at the MAPC was related to SF5 would be just on the other side of the tree line. It looks to me that 200-foot buffer. Do I understand that these houses along sagebrush there would have the hedgerow behind them, and then another set of single-family homes is what they be. So that satisfies that concern. I understand. It's in your MAPC concerns, but that has been addressed in the notes apparently. Okay. I just want to say there's different concerns in the notes here versus what I heard today. So I want to make sure that was addressed. I understand it correctly. So that is the plan. So along sagebrush, there's going to be these houses essentially back to back with a hedgerow between them.
And there is one nuance to that, sir, is that that 200-foot buffer applies to parcel 4.
Right.
And that is listed under the PUD language. And again, I go back to the language because that will be the governing language for this property is under number 3, which is land uses, and then B, it talks about the 200 feet west. Only single-family residential and golf course land uses are permitted within the 200 feet of the west and south boundaries of parcel 4. So where adjoining residential uses. So parcel 4, again, is this southwest corner. So the area would be then, parcel 3, I would just point out, is not covered by that language. But again, you can see the majority of the residential uses are in that southwest area.
Right. Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And I was still at public comments, so does anyone else in the audience wish to speak on public comments today? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. Commissioner Meitzner.
Okay, so public comment is closed, right?
Say that again.
Public comment is closed.
Yeah.
So let me ask Scott. I want to make I'm ready to make the recommendation, but Brian had indicated. Can I make the motion to approve with the improvements from MAPD and the CAB meeting?
Yes, sir. And I received an update with information about what that is, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on the right page here.
Okay.
But the difference, my understanding is the difference between the Planning Commission, what was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, and what was recommended for approval by the CAB, that the difference is that the CAB recommendation would allow the golf course use to occur within the 200-foot buffer on parcel 4. Brian, that's correct? Okay, and that is the language that is in the PUD text that you received as part of your packet.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'm going to look to Justin to make sure that by approving this as recommended in your staff report, it would include that language to allow the golf course. So we've met the needs that Brian had mentioned.
Right. Okay. Thanks for clarifying. So I'll make a motion to approve this item as proposed, including the recommendation of the CAB and the approval of the MAPD.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Thank you all. Commissioner Meitzner.
I just want to thank you all. Thank you, neighbors. Let's hope it's a beautiful project. I think it will be. If it was me living there, I think I'd like to have a golf course behind me instead of housing. But we'll see what happens. And I want to thank my fellow commissioners for being unanimously supporting of this project.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item G, 2023 budget discussion.
Manager Stoltz.
I think Commissioner Cruz had one item she wanted brought up, and Lindsay is going to be here to talk about it regarding the contracts of $250,000 or more. Is that correct?
Okay.
So while Lindsay's coming up here, she provided me with all contracts that are above $250,000 that I'd like to share and have placed in the public record. Sorry. This kind of relates to the policy yesterday that we discussed around contracts.
I apologize. It's not where I thought it was, so let me pull up Betty Nellis and display. Could we, if there are any other comments or questions?
Commissioner Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say I enjoyed receiving the mail, the notification that talks about all the different taxing jurisdictions and talks about the different changes planned for different jurisdictions. It shows the hearing dates and locations. I'm getting a few questions and comments from my constituents who have contacted me on this, but overall, I think that thing's worth $1. I like it. It keeps me informed exactly what's going on. That was what the estimate was. They said it's about $1 per parcel to generate that paper and get that sent out. And it's a tremendous amount of work for our clerk's office. It's very, very hard for them to do this. But they did get it out. My only concern would be, we already had our first public hearing, and the only public hearing we have left right now is August 24th, the morning of the adoption of the budget as planned. So people don't have much time to really impact the budget. If they come that morning with comments and questions and recommended changes, we will not really have much time to pivot based on anything we hear that morning. So that's not ideal. But other than that, I think the piece of paper that we received was very well done. I know it's very difficult, but it's worth the money and investment to inform our taxpayers what's going on. So I appreciate the good work.
It is also available on the website.
Very good.
If folks want to look at that.
Can you look up any address, or is it just is it based on address? You can look them up, or
Let me find out, and I will let you know for sure. I believe it is, but I'll have to confirm.
I know that our regular tax billings are a public record, so anybody can look up anybody else's tax information if they want to. So, all right. Well, anyway, I just want to say thank you for the people involved in getting that out. It was well done. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, while we're discussing that, I've gotten several phone calls and emails about the paperwork that went out from the county clerk. And I think there needs to be a little bit more definition, or they need to break out some definitions on there, what each of those columns mean. Because I have to explain to the people that call, what does that revenue neutral rate mean in the first column? And then how is the mill levy calculated in the next column, and so forth. So I think it's pretty good. But I think we need to, I know it comes from the state because I got one from 3 different counties, so they all look the same. But the definitions are just not clear enough. Well, there's no definitions. I do appreciate the fact that at the bottom of the form, it tells the location of all of the public hearings for the budget and the times that they're going to be held. So that's good. But there's a lot of confusion on what those different columns mean. If you look at ours, for example, if you look at the revenue neutral rate from the previous year, it would have been like 27 mills. If you look at what the budget is, it says 32 mills, and neither one of those are really what we concentrate on when we're putting together the budget. So I guess there's some more definition that would be required. That's my only point. And Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you. And I had also worked with the clerk's office to understand the form further, and I don't think the clerk's office is here, but the way I understand it, this whole format was set as part of the state requirement, and they were not able to deviate from or improve it. So maybe this next legislative session they might take into account all that. But the form is stuck with what it is. But second of all, we are on budget discussion. Is that correct?
Yes.
And are we still practicing that we were getting information to you by noon or end of day?
Yes, sir.
And then, so I hope what we're getting ready to discuss is something that, it's going to be brand new to me at least. So
I think it's just a discussion, and I think it ties back to the policy that we discussed yesterday about duration of contracts, I believe.
All right.
I'm not trying to put words in Commissioner Cruz's mouth, but but to speak to the form, that is actually something, the revenue neutral rate form is something that the Department of Administration puts together at the state level. So we can give them feedback that the form needs some definitions and things. So we may not have to go through a legislative process to actually make that happen. So I'll share that feedback back up with those folks. And thank you for being patient with me to get this pulled up.
Sure, to be clear, I asked for this
like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Plenty of time for, and I didn't ask for only myself to have this information. So whether it was disseminated to other commissioners, that was not on me. So I wanted to talk about this. I've had a couple of questions from constituents about what kind of contracts we have that are over $250,000. And so that's the reason why I'm bringing this here. And so if you just want to kind of briefly discuss, we don't have to go through all of these, but I wanted to make it part of the public record as to what we're spending our money on in an easy to understand way here written out. So if you want to go ahead and just explain some of these, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So first of all, what we looked at here are contracts where either the actual total spend referenced in the contract exceeds $250,000, or if we have a contract that has maybe a per unit price and we wound up spending $250,000 or more, we left it in here. I do think that it is worth noting that we did exclude some things from this list. We excluded the CARES grant awards from 2021 because those were unique. We excluded things like the equipment or PPE that we purchased through CARES, any of those temporary staffing agencies that we used either general fund or CARES or ARPA for. So those things are left off of this list. But to get to what is on this list, you'll see that for most of this, it tends to be either equipment or so for things like, election software or something along those lines. Or it's payments for billing services that we receive. Or it's something like a construction contract where we're paying someone to come in and help us do bridge construction or facility construction. You will see a lot of companies on here that have construction next to them. It's kind of all over the place. I think some that are worth calling out for purposes of this discussion include Evergy and then Exelon. Those are not things that we typically think of as contracts, but those are utility costs that we pay that are pretty significant. And so when we do have those opportunities for efficiencies where we can save some money here, that can be big dollars pretty quickly. I also think it's worth noting Gall's uniforms. That's how much we spent in 2021 just on uniforms. So when we talk about turnover costs, what we're seeing in EMS and sheriff and all those things, this has an impact on total spend for the county from that perspective too. Then you can see there are things like Catch. We have Starkey, some of those that are contracted, we make the payments for, but we're really a pass-through entity on behalf of the CDDO. You can see SAP, we spend some pretty good money on our financial system. If we go back up to the top here, you will also see Aumentum, which since we're talking about taxes, that is how much we pay in annual support just to operate a tax system. So as we look at those efficiencies with land records and tax processes, anything we can do to try and find efficiencies to help save some money on the tax process would be great. So those are just some of the examples. Dell's another big one, all of our computers that the county buys. So I will get this sent around to commissioners. So it does not include WSU because that is, even though that's paid out as a contractual, we give the money to WSU. We have no discretion over that whatsoever. And then you can see the other things that are excluded listed here at the bottom. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I will get this sent around.
Thank you. Questions for Lindsay?
Yeah. So,
Commissioner Cruz.
So these are annual or...
This is
total.
2021 total costs for these services.
So the particular one, like NetSmart Tech, that we do for ComCare. This week, Chairman Dennis and I attended our Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition. We're talking about a database for providers to speak to each other, and I've been asking about NetSmart pretty regularly. So I'm wondering, what exactly does that entail? And we don't have to get into the specifics of it now, but when it comes to lean management, when it comes to eliminating waste in our county, how often are we reevaluating the services that we're just continually paying for because we've been paying for them forever? That's my main question. This is a lot of money here that is just continually paid, and I want to make sure that, again, we're getting the best rates and we're getting the biggest bang for our buck and not just rubber stamping each one of these contracts. How can we ensure that that's happening?
Well, so when we enter these contracts for these type of year-to-year types things, for the most part, they're the 3-year contracts with 1-year options to renew. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of a 3-year period or sooner, if there's trouble, that's when we get purchasing involved to do vendor management. But at that 3-year mark, if folks are unhappy, that would be a time to put out an RFP or an RFB, proposal or bid, depending on exactly what we're after, and come back. So because these all have a $250,000, minimum threshold, these will all come through a bid board process, and then to the commission. So I think there's opportunities to have those discussions, and if there's specific questions or things we can integrate into that process that we can just make a part of a bid board report, I think we're more than happy to talk through what commissioners might be interested in knowing, particularly as it relates to technology contracts.
Okay. The other thing that I think this showcases is just how much we pay for, say, out-of-county housing. Mm-hmm. When we talk about the out-of-county housing for Butler County, that's $254,000. The Cherokee County is $347,000. So these types of payments that we're making, I wonder what, say, that, let's just round up to $600,000 could do for prevention services to keep people out of our jail in the first place, because we're paying to. And does this include just the housing, or is that transportation cost as well?
Just the housing. The transportation would be a separate budget.
Okay, so it's even more than that, and depending on how many times they go in and out. So I think this is a really good indication of where the money's going, how we're spending the money. I would like, if possible, to have this sort of broken down on a spreadsheet by category. Sure. So the maintenance fees that we're paying, if we could break it down by the types of budget that it would fall under, sure, that would be helpful. So that's really my only question around today. I just wanted to have this in a visual format so that the public could see, so that commissioners could see just how many contracts we do have that are over $250,000 that could be reevaluated at some point where it makes sense.
And Commissioner, when we get that spreadsheet put together, would you like us to post it out on the budget page?
Yeah, and please send it to all commissioners.
I will, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Meitzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just obviously, first glance, I have 2 comments, and one is I see that Senior Services, Inc. of Wichita gets $1,700,000. I assume those are lease payments?
That would be just the services that we contract with them to provide. So if we were to make a payment to them as a senior center operator, that would be potentially the vendor. If we are contracting with them to provide meals or transportation, we would pay it out from there. Okay. So we would not, I don't believe, and Tim can correct me if I'm wrong, it's all meals. Okay, there you go.
Okay, well,
never mind. We'll just call Tim up here and I will quit talking.
Well, in a different conversation, that's what this morning's 45 minutes of interest stuff. I wasn't prepared to ask these questions, but I'd like to look into what is the responsibility of Senior Services to do to change a light bulb, or does that all fall on us?
Tim Coffin, Deputy County Manager. Good question, Commissioner. We fund a number of senior centers throughout Sedgwick County, including 4 that Senior Services, Inc. manages within the city limits of Wichita. Clearly, they're responsible for the operation of those facilities. The vast majority of the money that you see here on this list for Senior Services is related to meals. Okay. They are a contractor with the Department on Aging for meals.
And we can talk about this. I'll need to understand further. Then the second of two comments is that I see the auditing BKD expense for an annual audit based on our discussion yesterday about fire. So we pay annually, where's that at? Four of us, there you go. $477,000 for an annual audit that covers all departments within our.
So this is a little high because we did have for 2021 such a large audit because of all the federal money that came in.
True.
So it typically would not be this high, but because we had to do CARES and ARPA and Shuttered Venue Operators Grant and all of those things.
So would you want to guess how, if the fire department was on its own and had to, obviously they would have to do an audit. You know, is that a comparable?
It would
guess
not
how much
be,
that would cost?
It would not be this high, but my assumption would be that if they did the audit, they probably also would use them to help with the budget. So maybe between 25 or 30,000.
Okay.
For their size of
Okay. All right.
budget expense.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. So in response to the comment about changing a light bulb, this is a whole system that needs to be replaced. I mean, the light bulbs that go into this senior center are completely outdated. The whole system in itself. So it's not just that no one's changing a light bulb. This is a real upgrade of the system. They're no longer making these light bulbs. It's hard to get them. So that's the real issue is lighting in the whole place is so outdated that they can't just simply change a light bulb. The other thing is the money that we have, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but the funding of $500,000 is important that it's allocated in the most efficient way. And I don't believe that there was a real research done around how this could be best utilized in our community. Clearly, going out to these centers, if we were going to fund $100,000 for infrastructure and now it's not even put in there, I mean, clearly there was some disconnect, and I'd like to make sure that we rectify that.
And it might be time to talk about that now because there is an item on consent dealing with that money. So maybe we have Tim come to the podium, and he's already there, and talk about Commissioner Cruz's question while he's getting ready. Just part of the reason we ramped up TRB was to look at software being used in the county so we did not have repetition and repeat throughout. So that committee is constantly looking at efficiency so that Sheriff Department doesn't buy a system and then EMS buys a system where they could buy a similar system. That's another component where we implemented policy back in 2019 that looks at and tries to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible with the concept of software contracts. So with that, Tim.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. A couple of different questions from the conversation this morning. One was related to the process that was used to identify best uses for that $500,000 that was identified in the budget last year. And it's correct that we did submit, or we proposed, talked to commissioners about one approach that would have spent about $170,000. And we got feedback through that discussion that we needed to think about delivering more services with that money and making sure that we expended all of it. In the time that we were going through that process where we were reviewing information from the needs assessment that the aging department does on the community as part of their state funding requirements, and looking at data from the ADRC call center, it became clear that particularly inflation had an impact on a lot of individuals. And so the department developed a new plan that addressed critical individual needs in the community, a number of different individuals that are impacted by rising food prices. And so that was a driver behind the increase in food boxes. I don't think many people are familiar with what all Medicare covers and doesn't cover. Medicare does not cover hearing aids, and it does not cover eyeglasses. And that's another high-volume call topic for our ADRC. And so that was why those items were increased as well. There's a lot of discussion about transportation and the need for transportation for seniors. And the majority of the vans that the aging department operates are funded with transportation dollars that are either federal or state dollars. And with those federal or state dollars come some restrictions on how they can be used. And we know that there are parts of Sedgwick County that aren't really well served by those federal dollars or those state dollars. So if we use local dollars to purchase a van, we'll be able to expand the amount and type of transportation that we'll be able to deliver in the community as well. Again, that's an individual need that we want to try and address. So again, it was data from primarily the call center and the needs assessment, and then these items fit with the strategic plan that the Department on Aging, the CPAAA, has as well. Inflation, a driver in those decisions, and the other thing that I think when we talked about, when Annette went over the $500,000 proposal, she mentioned that there are other funds available to help senior centers with some infrastructure work. There's additional federal money that's coming into the community because of ARPA, and the state has money that they've allocated to the CPAAs, including ours, and staff are in the process of figuring out how they're going to work with senior centers to implement those some of those infrastructure, or address some of those infrastructure upgrades in the community. So, and I don't think that that was emphasized enough in that conversation, that there are additional funds. And so it made sense for the department to use some of those state funds coming down to address senior center needs, while we could use the local money to address needs for individuals that are in great need.
How does the change with the hearing aids being made more affordable and now sold over the counter, that news just broke, I think, yesterday. Right. How does that change this?
From the things that we've looked at so far, it's probably not going to have much of an impact, because the prices that we've seen so far would indicate that they're still going to be over $2,000, between the $2,000 and $3,000 range for those over-the-counter devices, and we believe that we found hearing aids, prescription hearing aids, that are available for about $1,800. And so if it turns out that we can get more hearing aids for through over-the-counter vendors, we'll do that.
So as far as the other question in regards to funding levels, when will the discussion be had about an updated funding level disbursement?
I think correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but we've talked about this formula, and the Commissioner's right, we've talked about this for years. Did the staff not prepare options for commission?
Yes, we have. So we've gone through a couple of different iterations of potential funding allocation models that, if you look at this roughly $50,000 now that we put into senior centers, we've updated a model that we presented to commissioners probably 5 years ago when this topic came up. We've got that information updated. I think we've identified 4 different models that we could use to allocate those funds. We're certainly open to feedback from the department on how, or from the commission on how to allocate that, the amount that's budgeted for that fund.
Okay, so this is my 4th year, and we've not talked about that. If it was updated 5 years ago, and I've been asking for it this whole time, when can we have the meeting to discuss what was presented 5 years ago?
We could get that scheduled. We'll work with Lisa and Carol to get something scheduled.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let me be clear, and I've said this before, I am not against funding senior services. I have a serious problem if we're going to go in and take privately owned businesses and start maintaining buildings, mowing grass, and doing services like that. That is not county function. As if I'm going to do that by, let's go over to City of Wichita and see what they need maintained, or let's take a look at any number of businesses and what do they need maintained. We're not going to get into the business of maintaining property that does not belong to Sedgwick County. I want to make sure that everybody understands that there are 138,520 seniors over the age of 55 in Sedgwick County. The total membership in senior centers is 5,706. That's 4.1% of the seniors are members of senior centers. Average daily attendance across all senior centers is 475, or 0.34% of all those over the age of 55. So I am in favor of supporting senior services, and senior centers fall within that, but I'm not going to take the bulk of the money and put it into senior centers when we have so many needs in senior services. So make sure that you divide that up. Second thing is, I keep hearing over and over and over again about something that was passed back in 1982. Hey, I'm ready. Put a resolution together. We'll put it on the ballot in November. Bring it up to us. I'm ready to vote on it. But we want to make sure that when we put it on the ballot, that we let every senior who is going to be affected, because we're going to have to raise the mill levy in order to be able to do that. There's no possible way that we can absorb that. We've just gone through a huge budget process, and we're having to put our funding towards our staff in order to be able to maintain the great people we have now and to recruit new people in the future. So we can't roll back all of our services in order to take one mill and put it against senior services. So if the community wants to put one mill against senior services, they have to understand that that's above and beyond the 29 mills that we're now levying on the community. And that is a significant, serious concern for seniors. The phone calls I've been getting when they've gotten the revenue neutral rate is, I'm on a fixed income and I'm a senior. I can't afford all of these different increases that they're seeing on this revenue neutral rate. So let's make it clear. Let's put it on the ballot in November. I'm ready. We've got time. Commissioner Howell, Commissioner Cruz, draw up the resolution. Let's put it on the ballot now so that the seniors can vote on it, and let's see what happens. Okay. Anything else on budget recommendations? Seeing nothing, Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda.
Commissioner, Mr. Stoltz.
Yeah, good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Tom Stoltz, County Manager's Office. Recommend approval of consent items H through U this morning.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you. I'd like to propose, or I'd like to make a motion that we hold back item Q for further discussion.
Why don't you make your motion to approve H through U with the exception of Q?
Motion to approve H through U with the exception of Q.
Second motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Madam Clerk, call item Q as in Quebec.
Item Q, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners amending and adopting certain Sedgwick County personnel policies and procedures.
Thank you. Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have a minor comment about this or suggestion that I'd like to propose for consideration. And I know, thank you, Sheena, for being here to clarify. But anyway, what I'd like to consider, this wage and salary document has been long, a lot of work, and it's I'm glad to see it's a final. We're at this point where we're finally approving a wage and salary administration policy. So congratulations and thank you, assuming that we vote to approve this. But what I'd like to exempt from this policy is item H regarding elected officials' wages. And actually, what I really want to propose is that the elected officials, items 1, 2, 3, that's fine. I'd like to propose that we exempt the elected Sedgwick County commissioners, the 5 of us, from that item, because we've discussed before or mentioned before that if we as a commission take a raise or a salary adjustment, that we would have to approve that on a vote, a unanimous or a majority vote of the commissioners, whoever they are at the time. And so I'd like to make a motion that we add into item H the exemption of Sedgwick County elected commissioners, the county commission, not, and the other elected officers can be part of that. So I don't know if I've got that motion exactly right, but, and also would like to ask, well, I guess we could add it as part of the motion that we discuss, that we address county commission pay at a workshop or at another agenda item sometime here in the future.
Commissioner Meitzner, with one minor change, I could agree. My concern is we have an awful lot of responsibility on this commission, the 5 commissioners. In addition, we have 3 row offices that did get a 2% pay raise back in January. And with your motion, they'll get another 2% and 8% coming up in the first of the year. And I don't want to take anything away from those 3 row offices, but I think the responsibility levels are at least equal, if not greater, on Sedgwick County Commission. So if we're going to exempt anyone, I would keep all of those at the same level. So the way it's written right now, or the way that you made the motion right now, I don't know that I agree with, just because of the consideration on the row offices. So, Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarity's sake, is there any way that we could maybe have this in writing? Is there any way we could write this down to ensure that we're all clear about exactly what, or can you repeat your motion? I'm a little unclear.
Okay, under section H of item Q, which is the wage and salary administration policy, my motion is to exempt the Sedgwick County Commission elected, us 5, from a part of this section H, and desire the staff to have a separate workshop or even an agenda item on about Sedgwick County elected commissioners.
So if possible, Sheena, could you just come up and explain kind of what he's discussing so that there is clear understanding?
Good morning, Sheena Schmutz, Chief Human Resources Officer. As I understand it, Commissioner Meitzner, you are proposing to go ahead and pass the policy as is, with the exception of removing item H and bringing that back for separate discussion at a staff or in a BOCC meeting as an agenda item.
So it's essentially commissioners will not be getting a raise unless it's voted on by the commission. The row offices, treasurer, deeds, and clerk will be getting a raise, did get one at the very beginning of the year, will be getting an additional one as well.
That is
so
correct.
I want to make that clear that commissioners are not, I am not getting a raise. I have talked about not taking any additional funds. And so that's the difference between this.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that clear?
That's what I'm understanding.
Okay.
Now, the chairman's brought something up a little bit different that the
Sure.
commission still needs to vet.
But the motion that Commissioner Meitzner has presented is as such.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could weigh in briefly, what I'm hearing from the Commissioner Meitzner and our HR director are a little bit different. She's talking about deleting Section H and bringing it back, which would possibly have the consequences of not giving the row officers the bump that Commissioner Cruz was just talking about. I believe Commissioner Meitzner is just talking about making sure that this section does not apply to county commissioners.
But the gist of the whole thing is some will receive raises and some won't. That's the gist of this.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Commissioner Howell.
Mr. Chairman, I just think we ought to maybe push the entire policy back a few weeks Does any of this have to be passed right now?
Our other policy that we have, the reclass policy, it does go hand in hand with the wage and salary updates that we are asking for.
So there's urgency to get this passed.
Yes.
I've been here long enough to see some commissioners have changed their own salary, and I think it's a hodgepodge of people doing things for different reasons. A couple of commissioners, when I first got here, were receiving less money than the other commissioners, and then later on they decided to do some catch-up payments. They got some extra money back, and then some commissioners have given some of their extra money to charity events where they've given out their extra funds. They felt like they were overpaid, and they did that. All kinds of things happen here. I don't know what the right answer is. I know that people want their elected officials to make basically nothing, and we do get very good wages here. I'm not complaining at all. So it's virtually impossible to ever change your wages if you're going to make this a huge public event. That isn't going to happen. So our wages will be essentially frozen at the level they're at right now. If we pass this as suggested, I think their wages will be frozen. Again, that's fine, but. We did have inflation this last year. I have made more money in the private sector, and again, I'm not complaining in any way. I love my job. I get paid very well for what we do here. But having said that, I just think there ought to be some mechanism to adjust pay somehow. The state of Kansas, the legislators there, I think, have had $88.66 a day for decades, and they're scared to death to broach the topic. Whereas in county commission, I was surprised when I showed up here. They just got the same pay adjustments everybody else got. So that's how the wages got up where they are today. So maybe there will be something between those 2 points. I don't know what the right answer is, but I feel like this is being rushed. And I don't know if we should separate the one issue from the rest of the issues, because I think it needs to be more thoughtful. And I don't know if I like the idea that we're just doing this quickly. So I don't know that I like the making sausage from the bench on this amendment. And I don't know that I like just passing it as is either. So I think either situation, I've got trouble with this. So I don't even know how to vote this morning, but I do think that it needs to be more thoughtful, I guess, is my opinion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you. I would agree with a few people here on different parts. One, I think it is important that we pass everything besides this piece, because I know that is important to get done today. But I do agree with Chairman Dennis that as electeds between the commission and row offices, we have at least equal responsibility. So if some are going to take raises and some aren't, then that throws it all off. So if we can keep some kind of equal pay scale, and regardless of what that looks like, whether we take raises or we don't take raises, I think it should stay between the two pretty similar. So I don't mind pulling this off and having this discussion further at a later time, but we could also, and I know this is not what you guys want to do because it does create different pay for different people, and I know that's one thing that you guys have been trying to get away from, but if we just remove the word not from number 3 on H, then electeds can just decide if they want to take that or not, and then they, I know that's frustrating. It's got to be frustrating for HR, and I realize that, but that might be something that people could agree on at least, and then if people want the raise or don't want the raise, they can make that decision for themselves, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. Thank you.
Well, do we have any recommendations for a second, an alternate motion? We don't have a second on the first one yet. Do we have any other motion that anyone would like to make?
I'll make a motion to defer till next week so that we can work this out at that time.
I would second that, depending on what Sheena tells me. What impact is it going to have if we defer a week?
We can work with a week.
Okay.
The whole thing or just H?
You just want to defer H or?
Whole thing. The whole thing, please.
I make a motion we defer the whole thing until next week.
Okay. And that you can live with?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any alternate motions? If not, I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Aye.
Thank you for allowing me to discuss this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Legislative issues.
Anybody have anything on legislative issues today? I don't believe we should. Next item, please.
Committee reports.
Anyone have anything on committee reports? The only thing I'd like to state is that Jubilee is going to be held on September the 10th. Make sure you get your tickets. It's a great time to be had by all. Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you. This will be brief. We did meet with the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition this week, and we will be looking at having another community update in October around kind of all the things that we've been working on. We have a lot of committees that are doing database work. We're working on barriers. We also have been working on a legislative platform priorities, and those committees are open to anyone who wants to join. So if you would like to be a part of the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition, not necessarily serving on the board, but as a committee member working on those items I just mentioned, please let me know. We are doing a lot of work around behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse, and its intersection with our criminal justice system. So thank you for the opportunity to share that update.
Thank you. Don't see anything else. Madam Clerk, next item.
Other.
As far as other, the one thing I'd like to bring up, earlier this week, had an opportunity to sit down and talk with the governor about the regional mental health facility. And what we anticipated was that on Monday, the Spark Committee would notify the public on how that they're going to allocate the Spark funding. Unfortunately, they didn't. We were hoping that we would be approved for $25 million coming out of Spark in order to help fund the regional mental health facility here in Sedgwick County. The governor has already put into the budget that was passed by the state legislature $15 million, and the estimate is it would cost $40 million to build a regional mental health facility. So the $15 million that's already in the budget and the $25 that we were hoping we would get from the Spark Committee would fund a regional mental health facility, and that's what we've been fighting for. It's one of our number one issues on our legislative agenda. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I don't know why. So if you talk to any of your legislators, please press them to see if we can get the Spark money released, because we're not going to move forward on this project until we have the funding. So I was very, very disappointed that it did not come out of the Spark Committee on Monday as promised, but it's critical that we move forward on this. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we did discuss it, and we are hoping we can move forward. At this time, I'd like to recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting and call to order. Actually, let's recess for about 5 or 6 minutes so that everybody can take a break, because it's been a long period of time. And please be back here by 25 after so that we can start, because we still have a lot of things to discuss. So we're going to go recess before we call.
Chairman, just have a 30-minute executive session.
Just came back from break. At this time, I'd like to recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting for August 17th, 2022. Call the meeting, the order to the meeting of the governing body of Fire District Number 1 for 17 August 2022. Madam Clerk, next item.
Roll call. Commissioner Meitzner. Present. Commissioner Cruz.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Present. Next item, please.
Public agenda.
I do not have anyone signed up on public agenda, and we did not receive anything online. Next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, fire meeting minutes of July 13th, 2022.
Commissioners, everyone's had an opportunity to look at the fire minutes from July 13th and the fire minutes from August 3rd. Move to approve both. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
New business. Item C, request for budget transfer from Fire District contingency to the Fire District personnel budget.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is our request for a budget transfer from Fire Department contingency to the Fire Department personnel budget. The transfer would be in the amount of $700,000 and would be from Fire District contingency to the Fire District personnel budget. The Fire District Number 1, in cooperation with Finance, Budget, and Human Resources, has identified a need for additional personnel budget authority in order to accommodate the proposed pay plan. Additionally, these funds will be needed to hire a recruit class for 2022 as well as anticipated retirement payouts. The alternative is to not transfer the budget authority, not move the personnel into a step plan, and not do the academy. Not filling a recruit academy will leave a current pending vacancies unfulfilled, which may create staffing problems in 2023 for the fire district. Under the county's budget allotment and transfer policy, budget transfers of $250,000 or more require approval from the Board of County Commissioners. SCFD 1 is requesting to transfer $700,000 from contingency fund to personnel to increase budget authority for the implementation of the STEP plan, as well as a recruit class. The legal considerations are transfers of budget authority is within a fund or permissible under state budget law with a simple majority vote, so long as the total amount of the budget authority in the fund does not increase. All policies have been followed for Sedgwick County in this recommendation.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yesterday at a staff meeting, I presented some changes to the pay plan. This is $700,000 dealing with 2022 only, and what we're going to do in 2023 is we'll be discussing when we do budget adoption next week, I assume. Okay, so this transfer just takes care of 2022. And I think the changes with the step plan that I proposed don't have any impact on 22 at all. I think this all starts in 23. So does that sound? I'll make sure I didn't misunderstand my own documents.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, Lindsay Peruso, your CFO. So if the step plan that is being implemented in the fourth quarter changes from what has been proposed and included in this discussion, then it potentially would have impact. But to what degree, I don't know. I have not looked at that.
Do we have authority to make this transfer at any time during the fiscal year?
Yes.
So if we did adjust that after budget adoption, there was other changes to the 2022 budget, we could still make the transfer as necessary. Okay.
To the extent there is additional budget authority remaining, which I think right now we anticipate to be around $300,000 after this.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. I support the motion, the proposal this morning. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Make a motion to approve the transfer of $700,000 from Fire District contingency to Fire District personnel budget. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item D, discussion of a resolution to create the Sedgwick County Fire District 1 Steering Council.
Morning, Justin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Justin Wagoner, Assistant County Counselor, here to present this draft resolution has been distributed to all of you. The first item, as the Deputy County Clerk mentioned, is a proposed resolution for a Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 Steering Commission. Commissioner Howells, who's requested this resolution to be in front of you today, and after I get done presenting this, it's possible he may want to elaborate on some of the rationale behind this. I think he could state all of that better than I could. As you all know, this was discussed in pretty extensive detail during your Board of County Commissioners staff meeting yesterday, and obviously those meetings are available on the county's YouTube website if someone would want to see them. The scope of this advisory, or I should say, steering commission, would be that it could advise Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 on almost all matters, really including HR policies, IT, salary and pay policies, operation and staffing of fire stations, and any operation policies for the fire district. It would be composed of 9 members. All of those members would have to either have a residence in which they pay Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 taxes for at least 2 years, or they would own a business within Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 that pays taxes for at least 2 years. It proposes that there would be 5 members appointed specifically by city councils of the 5 largest cities within Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1. Those would be Mays, Park City, Goddard, Hayesville, and Bel Air. And then it proposes 4 additional at-large members appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. I did want to point out the resolution draft that I've handed out to you is slightly different from what you discussed yesterday, based on the comments and feedback that you provided yesterday at that Board of County Commissioners staff meeting. The first change was that I did add the term geographical diversity back into the language in terms of the general diversity that would be intended to be here. I'd initially taken it out because we are getting very specific on geography, but I think there could still be an intent to have diversity on that. I think that was the will of some of the commissioners yesterday. The second change, if you go to pages 2 and 3 of the draft resolution, and it starts at the bottom of page 2, it identifies at-large members 1 and 3, at-large, and then if you go on to page 3, it identifies at-large member 2, and then also at-large member number 4. Specifically, there was discussion about how those 4 at-large appointments would be divided up. This now gets a little bit more specific than what was presented to you yesterday. 2 of the 4 positions would be specifically for people who live or have a business within Sedgwick County, or within the unincorporated area of Sedgwick County that's in Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1, with similar provisions as I mentioned before. The other 2 positions, one of them would be for a different city, not one of the 5 cities I already mentioned. And I believe Rusty Leeds yesterday during the discussion mentioned that there are at least 4 or 5 other cities, I believe, that are located in Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1, that one of those members would come from one of those cities. It would be up to the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners which city that would come from, that appointment. And then also there was some discussion about there are a number of contracting entities, aircraft companies. There may be other entities that contract with Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 for the provision of fire protection services. And so there would be a contracting entity position where any one or more of those entities could bring someone forward for appointment to this steering commission. And so that would be how those 4 appointments would be contemplated. Now, I will point out, those are very specific. Because there could be a concern about if you're going to be able to fill all those very specific provisions. There was kind of a catch-all provision, would be subsection D on page 3 that talks about unfilled vacancies. If the board was unable to fill one of those vacancies that I just mentioned for the 4 at-large positions, with a 2/3 vote, which is atypical, but the intent behind that would be to recognize the need to have a quorum and a functioning steering commission. If somebody just lived within Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1, they could fill one of those vacancies. So it's kind of a backstop, so that you wouldn't run into a position where you'd only have 6 or 7 appointees. You could have a full steering commission. I'd be happy to address any questions on that. Moving back to what the resolution has, it does also clarify that the appointments would be made pursuant to generally following the county's at-large advisory board appointment process. Preference would be given to individuals with experience in accounting, human resources, law, and ownership or management of a business with at least 25 employees. There would be staggered terms so that members would not term on and off at the exact same time. Be a limitation of 2 full 4-year terms. The members would serve at the pleasure of the Board of County Commissioners. The steering commission would be advisory only. Their meetings would have to follow the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and their meetings would be held at Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 property. The resolution draft, today's recommended action is just to receive and file, but if it were to be adopted, it would become effective upon adoption. Again, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Well, thank you, Justin. Thanks for the clarifications. Commissioner Meitzner.
So we're just receive and file today, because yesterday there was a lot of discussion, and I thought this was going to be tabled so a few of us could understand it better. Is that right? But by receive and file, does that mean next vote is we approve it?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I think we can take as much time as we need at this. We talked about going out to the community and asking for their input.
Exactly.
So we can still do that. This is just to make sure that everyone has a chance to see it. We're unveiling this publicly, and we can move forward when we're ready to adopt it.
Okay, so if I had some suggestions to improve, to make on this, can I make suggestions? I mean, this thing came under the authorship of Commissioner Howell, right?
Yes.
And then there has been some suggestions made just from, I mean, I've got some suggestions that I'd really like to add to this or consider before it even takes its next step. But
And Commissioner Reiser, I don't think there was any intent to cut you or any other commissioners off from being able to suggest changes, so that certainly would be intended to be fair game. And I think I forgot to add, there was discussion yesterday from you and other commissioners about opening this up for additional discussions and input to the public.
Okay, yeah. City managers, city mayors, major employers need to be contacted. If I was doing this, I would say if this committee, I got two things. If this committee suggests any budgetary cuts, then it has to be a vote of record. A majority of the commission of that committee needs to sign. And if a recommendation is to cut anything, it has to be by the majority of the commission, and they have to have their name on it. Consequently, if that committee wants to bring us a recommendation to increase a mill levy, I want it to be either a unanimous or a supermajority. I don't want that committee just coming to us with a couple of people saying increase the mill levy. They need to be on record, and it needs to be, in my opinion, it needs to either be a majority or a supermajority for any mill levy reference increase. Now, budget cuts can be a simple majority as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
Okay, so this would be directly underneath the commission. And what, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that you want to change the voting structure of how the commission would handle recommendations.
No, this is about this group. If this group is doing all of this, what is not addressed in there are budgetary cut suggestions or mill levy or revenue increases. So I'm just saying if they're going to do that, they have to be on record when they make a recommendation to us.
Okay, but whatever the recommendation is of this committee would still have to come before the Board of County Commissioners.
Absolutely. It's I think it says in there somewhere non-binding or something like that. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, so one further clarification. Are you saying, where did the supermajority would have to be with this committee or with the commission?
No, with that committee.
The committee.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But ultimately, the main vote rests with the Board of County Commissioners.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's all my two. As I look at it further, I might have some others, but that's the main ones. Because this committee is going to have a lot of recognition. It's going to have membership that is significant, and all the reasons we talked about before. And I'm okay with this board, but I just don't want to receive an agenda item that says we recommend you cutting or eliminating one of the fire stations, for instance. We recommend eliminating fire station X. If they want to eliminate that, of those 9 people, I want to see who voted to eliminate it and who voted to not eliminate it. And same thing with a mill levy a revenue increase. I want to be on record. This committee's on record. It is an open meeting anyway, but I want it to be on record.
Okay.
I'll wait. Go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Cruz?
But the minutes would be recorded, so everything would be on record. You're just wanting a formal official vote.
If I may, Commissioners, I think something we could do to I think address your question, Commissioner Cruz, and what you're asking for, Commissioner Meitzner, is we could add language in there to note that there will be minutes taken reflecting any motions and votes on motions with naming out the specific steering commission members who vote for or against a given motion. I mean, we could get that specific. The Open Meetings Act doesn't necessarily require you to do all of that. But we typically do with our advisory boards, and I think that's a reasonable thing to add into this if you would wish to do so.
Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, if this committee doesn't have a supermajority, the Board of County Commissioners could still enact whatever, if they wanted to raise the mill levy. I mean, so I think just you're wanting a record of votes, but if there wasn't a supermajority of this committee, the Board of County Commissioners as the fire district would still be able to do essentially what maybe there wasn't a supermajority of committee members that voted. Does that make sense?
It does, and I would say yes. As a Board of County Commissioners, as the governing body for the fire district, you retain discretion over any mill levy adjustments, changes like that. All of these. And as Commissioner Meitzner noted, this would be advisory only. I believe what Commissioner Meitzner was asking about would be setting some sort of parameters to where any recommendation on certain things. For example, I think you mentioned a mill levy increase. That it wouldn't be considered a recommendation of approval from this steering commission unless it had either a supermajority or unanimous vote. The vote could still be recorded. I think each of the 5 commissioners would be able to view that as they would see fit in making their determinations on the budget.
Okay. Sure. So I think, out of respect for my colleagues, we did just receive this yesterday. I do want to thank Commissioner Howell for working on this draft, and I am fully supportive of this because I do believe it's a step in the right direction to make sure that the fire district receives the attention that it deserves. I mean, as a commissioner who deals with 40 departments, multiple constituent concerns, plus the Board of Health and the governing board of the fire district, I am pulled in a lot of directions. And as I mentioned to Casey and a couple of folks that I met with last week on the corner at Riverside Park, we discussed that. I mean, that's a lot of our job is we're really pulled in different directions. So I do think that this really gives a really good look at all of the ins and outs of the fire district that I really get a high level at. I don't get the nitty gritty in the details like a committee like this would have the time to get into. So I am supportive of this. I do think that it could use, if it makes for a 5-0 vote, if we can get all of us unanimously engaged in this to where we are supportive, if we need to take a little bit more time, but I don't want this to languish forever. What would be the most appropriate time frame, Commissioner Meitzner, that you feel it would take to get you comfortable with some of these changes?
I think if you and whoever else is helping take the lead on that, if you contact all of the cities in Sedgwick County, the managers and the commissioners or their city council, the mayors, and the 3 or 4 major employers that I talked about yesterday. And if they're all, however long that takes, if you can get that done in 3 days, then that's fine. I'm not, that's what, this thing is so important. It needs due diligence and input. A lot, I think. Now, maybe everybody just says, yeah, that's fine, it's a great idea. Perfect. That's perfect if that happens. You tell me how long is it going to take everybody to contact everybody. That's how long I need.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
All right, let's start from the beginning. So right up front, I didn't like the name advisory committee because I think it sounds like they're just throwing some ideas over the wall and we may or may not like their ideas. And so I wanted to make it something different than an advisory committee. I used the word steering commission. Maybe that's not the right word because I've already heard today some confusion on the word commission. in other words, I think are just as good, are probably steering committee or steering council. Those are also good ideas. If someone would like to see a different word there, I'm certainly open to a friendly amendment to change the name commission to the word council or committee. The reason this is before us today is because I have to go back to the very. Let me back up to one thing that Commissioner Meister talked about. The reason you're looking at this is I don't like doing this behind my closed door. I want to do this in the open, the transparent process where commissioners can hear each other talk. We're under Kansas Open Meetings Act, and I can't talk to commissioners about the same stuff. So I want you guys to hear my ideas, and I want to be able to work on this together. Only way to do that is to do this during a public open meeting. That's why we're doing it this way. There is no rush to adopt something quickly. But I do think that this is, I think, again, I'll just say like I did yesterday, I think, Justin, you did such a tremendous job. I don't think this is far from being a final document. I think we can make some adjustments. Again, I say me personally, the reason that this has come up is because 5 commissioners do not live in the fire district, are not serviced by the fire district, and don't pay fire district taxes. That is a huge problem. And there have been some commissioners in the past that have lived in the fire district, but it's been very sporadic, and it's never been a majority of this board. And I think the ultimate goal here is to have an elected fire board. That's where I want to go ultimately. Until that happens, that may take a year or two. I don't know how long it will take if we ever get it done. I hope we do. But in the meantime, I want to make sure we have representation from the people who pay these taxes and expect these services. They have to have a voice. I cannot imagine we offer this voice, someone says, that's a bad idea. I don't think that's likely. I think they're going to appreciate the opportunity to speak and be recognized officially. So that's why this has come up before us. I don't mind talking to the large companies that are serviced by the fire district. However, they don't pay fire district taxes. They pay what's called payment in lieu of taxes. As far as I know, that won't change. So again, their services, as far as I can tell, will be unaffected by this advisory council. Steering commission. I said the wrong word already, didn't I? But as far as I know, I don't think their services will be impacted in any way by having a steering commission. And we're actually asking them to have a seat at the table also. So again, I think if to the extent this might affect general taxes of Sedgwick County residents, and they have interest in their employees having good public safety services, I think they would be glad to be at that table. But in terms of their services to the company, I don't see that this impacts them directly. I don't mind asking them, though. In terms of you made a comment a moment ago, Commissioner Meitzner, that you wanted me to ask all cities. Does that mean all 20? Because there are only 5 Class 2 cities that are serviced by the fire district, and there's a few, I think it was 5 other cities I think are serviced by the fire district that are not Class 2. But there's a lot of cities that have, I think there's 6 cities that have volunteer or part-time departments and 3 cities that have full-time. So those, let me do that math there. We have 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess 9 cities in Sedgwick County that don't really have, they're not paying district taxes at all. So do I need to ask all 20 cities or just the 11?
If you feel that those cities don't need to be asked, then don't ask them.
I guess I'm just wanting clarification from you, what you want me to do.
I don't want to get a call from people saying, I had no idea, from a mayor or a council member said, I had no idea what you guys were doing on this. I don't want to get blindsided. We're not going to be blindsided right now. I'm okay with this in theory. I just want to make sure that it wasn't done yesterday and then received and filed today, and then we vote on it tomorrow, and here we go. And I'm like,
that's not my intention. My intention, again, was to show commissioners first yesterday, show the public today. That's why we're here. I'm doing this very respectfully and very thoughtfully, and there's no, as I said over and over, no rush. We'll move forward when we're ready. But rather than showing this to the cities first before you saw it, that's not fair to you.
Okay,
so I want to do it the right way. That's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it.
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, I see there's, I think, 20-something firefighters in the room. I'd like to know if you'd be willing to let them speak to this, if there's anything like the feedback so we can hear their comments about this, would that be acceptable to have them come present any comments, again, with the time we have allowed? Do it briefly. Would that be okay to have maybe one of them?
Well, again, at quarter after, the manager and I are leaving. But I was going to ask the chief. He represents the firefighters. So if the chief would like to speak to this, I would allow him to speak.
Good morning, Commissioners. Doug Williams, Fire Chief. We've had, this was handed to me last Thursday, so we've had 6 days to ponder this and think about it and discuss it. And one of the things that we found out with the conversations that were had a month ago about one of the cities, I think we've recognized the fact that we have not done overall a good job communicating with the cities. We need to get a method to communicate with Hayesville and Park City and Bel Air, and this advisory board may help that. So, anytime that you work with a board, it's comprised of you're dealing with what the board's made up of. It doesn't matter whether it's a city council or whether it's a school board or whether it's a county commission. The board's is the people that you work with, and if this is the will of the commission, then I'll most certainly work with that board to the best of my ability. Outside of that, I'll stand if any questions.
Well, Chief, I think there's consensus that we think that it's a good idea to have an advisory board. We have a lot of advisory boards. What we ask is that you work with Justin, and at some point we'll bring this back for a vote. But in the meantime, I'm glad that it's a public forum today, that everyone has an opportunity to hear from it. I agree with Commissioner Meitzner that we need to make sure that those people that are most affected by it, because we're going to ask a number of them to appoint people to this board, and they need to be informed. So we need to move forward. I think there's consensus to move forward, but we need to make sure that we do it very deliberately and very accurately and very transparently. Today, again, this is just a receive and file, but we do value your input to what this is finally going to look like.
Okay.
Okay. And we have a motion from Commissioner Meitzner to receive and file. I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Commissioner Howell.
Just one point I'd make, since we haven't adopted the next resolution yet, I'd ask the manager to help. Have your office please help me contact these 11 cities. And I'm not really feeling the best right now, so I'd ask for some help on this and get that message out. An email would probably be fine, and communicate with the mayors and the city managers of those cities, make sure they're aware, and ask them for their thoughts. If they want a presentation, we can make a presentation, but I think at the end of the day, just letting them know this is out there, I think I need your help to do that, if that's okay.
We'll take care of that, sir. Yes.
Thank you so much.
And SCAC might be helpful too.
Okay. Any other comments before we go to a vote? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Aye. Commissioner Cruz. Aye. Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item E, discussion of a resolution to modify the provision of administrative services for Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1.
Justin, welcome back.
Thanks again, Justin Wagoner, Assistant County Counselor. This is another resolution that's been provided to you and requested by Commissioner Howell. It's in draft form. This is unchanged from what you saw yesterday, so I didn't make any changes based on your comments at the staff meeting. And again, it was discussed at length in the staff meeting. Currently, as has been the case for several decades, perhaps even as far back as Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1's existence, Sedgwick County staff has provided a range of administrative services to the fire district. These services include things like facilities project services, human resources, payroll, budget, communications, management services, auditing, workers' compensation compliance, legal services, both in-house counsel and external counsel, benefit management services, risk management and insurance, purchasing and procurement services, records management, and IT services. There's a lot more I didn't list there, but those are some of the big ones. The 2023 budget that's been proposed for Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 and that you'll be taking up next week proposes that the fire district would pay $621,658 to Sedgwick County for those services that are provided to the fire district. During your budget hearing as the governing board for the Fire District Number 1, there was some discussion about these administrative fees, and also I think there was talk about whether would it make, for lack of a better term, would there be an interest or would it be more efficient for these services to be either provided by the fire district or for the fire district to acquire those services from external vendors. The draft resolution that Commissioner Howell requested on this and that's been provided would propose to transition all of those administrative functions to where they would no longer be part of the county staff. So county staff wouldn't be providing them, and Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 staff or vendors who they would hire would instead be tasked with providing those services. The intended effective date in the resolution draft is January 1st, 2023, but I'd point out there was some discussion yesterday, and Commissioner Howell also made some comments they'd be willing to defer the effective date of that if something like this would pass. Again, this resolution is just for receive and file today for your discussion, presentation. It's not for action, at least that's not how it's been proposed. I would imagine if something like this would be passed, the corollary would be that the fire district and county budgets would be amended to where the $600 and some thousand would no longer be paid, obviously, because those services wouldn't be provided either. In essence, if this would be approved, the resolution would make Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 largely autonomous from Sedgwick County, certainly at the staff level, and vice versa, with the exception of you as the Board of County Commissioners would still sit as the governing body for both Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1 and the county. I'd be happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Justin? I don't. Commissioner Howell.
There's not really a question, but just wanted to, I guess, comment further, if that's acceptable. I know we're in a hurry, so I'll try to hurry up. But I've thought about how to implement this, and I guess some of these things on this long list here, it's not clear to me whether or not the money, the $621,000, is actually paying for the service or paying for management of those services. For example, workers' compensation services. We have someone on staff who makes sure that that's in place, but are we paying for that person or are we paying for the services themselves?
I'll defer to Lindsay Pover.
I can ask the very same question of virtually everything on this list. So,
Commissioners, Lindsay Proverso, your CFO. So to answer your question, when it comes to workers' compensation through the cost allocation plan, this only deals with the management of workers' compensation because the revenues themselves are charged to the departments through their personnel budgets. There's a rate that's calculated each year and included as a percentage, normally anywhere from 1% to 2% of actual earnings.
This may not be a question for you, might be for Sheena, but are there HR companies out there that do similar suites, a set of services like this? I'll call it a suite of services that you pay them a contract fee per year, and they basically provide all of these functions. Is that something that is out there available?
Yes, there are companies out there that do host those services.
Again, so my intent to bring this up today is not necessarily to adopt it quickly. I know there's a date on here that says January 1. I think that's totally editable. We can change that to another date, probably whatever we feel good with, okay? So not trying to rush this, but I've been thinking about this more and more. Again, the second reason why there's two reasons why this is in front of us. Number one, I've heard from the firefighters, they believe there's potential efficiencies, some cost savings that they could use, roll that back into things like salary. And that would be, if you can do that, great. That's a great way to get some money available for things like salary. But the second reason, which I think is important, again, we're moving towards an elected fire board. I think that's the best model based on representation. But this, if we can make some of this happen and really can't do part of this, you really have to do all of it at once, or at least have a plan to get from A to Z. But when you make all these things happen, then you set yourself up for that smooth transition to an elected fire board. So that is really the secondary reason why this is so important. So I got to thinking about the cost savings. And you look at this long list, it's daunting. It's like, well, this is a lot of stuff. And again, I know you guys do a tremendous job, and I'm not going to question whether it's a good deal or not. No, I'm not the one to make that decision or that have that opinion. But I do think that primarily with about 4 primary staff, whether some of this is internal or contracted out, if the chief would hire himself a professional MPA, we have Tom Stoltz does a great job for Sedgwick County. If the chief would have his own MPA that worked for the fire district, not a firefighter, but a professional public administration officer who's a professional manager, that would probably take care of a lot of the responsibilities on this list. And we have probably a professional CFO that does a lot of the financial things on this list. Maybe the HR parts are contracted out. Maybe you have to hire someone who does HR. I don't know the answer to those questions, but I do think when you look at this, break it down to what you really have to have, it's maybe three or four personalities or contracts in place to kind of cover the entire list. So it's not, you look at it a long list like this, it's very daunting, but when you look at it another way, it's really not as hard as it looks, I don't think. Not to say you guys do very hard work. I'm not saying it that way. I'm not saying it's not hard. It's very, very hard. It's a lot. But I'm saying in order to attack this list, I think you can probably have 3 or 4 people who are truly skilled in these areas and probably knock out most of this list. So I don't think it's a bad idea necessarily. I would like to continue to look for estimates to find out whether this is a cost savings truly for the fire district or whether it's just to get this set up for a separation of the fire district from us to an elected fire board. In either case, I still think it needs to move forward. So I'm glad this is before us today. I will ask the public to weigh in on this one as well. And if anybody has any comments or recommended changes, I'd love to hear those ideas. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to ask Chief Williams if he has any comments on this.
Good morning, Commissioner. Chief Williams again. We started on this about a month ago. There was a comment made in a staff meeting, and we discussed this a little bit in the staff meeting. Commissioner Howard brought it up, and Lindsay had answered some questions on it. So we had actually started this process about a month ago, working on trying to get down through these. And one of the things, first off, I think we have to say out of the gate is I don't believe that it would be feasibly responsible to try this January 1. I think for us to negotiate health care and risk management, liability insurance, and all those things in 2 to 3 months and get that in place, I think would be a bad move. And I think that we could struggle getting health care done, and I'd hate to see our people have health care lapses or insurance lapses or not get a paycheck, the first paycheck in January, because we didn't have time to get through all of this. I think this is a task that is going to take us some time to get through and to where we can even make a recommendation of the feasibility. We are studying it. We're trying to look at other agencies very similar to our size. I mean, we use Johnson County District 1 and District 2 fire departments because they are standalone departments and they're smaller than us. They're about half our size, but we can use them for some comparisons. I have suggested to our folks to look for cities, counties, school districts that have 150 employees and look at what they do for payroll, what do they do for risk management, what do they do for HR. You know, and I think that that's the way we have to go. But right now you have every city and county right square in the middle of budget season. We called an auditor that I'd worked for in the past, the agency I'd worked for some, as an $8.5 million budget and 86 employees, and I reached out to them and to find out what their auditing costs were and budget preparation costs, and Lindsay was pretty close. They told me it's $24,000 for 2021. So, you know, her figure she gave was obviously pretty close. But we're going to have to put all that together, and we can't in 1 month get back bids on, you know, contracting for HR or contracting for budget preparation, or it just won't work by the first year. I think that we need a chance to continue our study, continue to work through this whole list, and come back with a recommendation of what we believe it would cost and that's where I think we should go, is to continue to work on this very hard. And, you know, Commissioner Meissner brought up his experiences the other day that were made good points. And so that would be my recommendation, is I don't believe that we can pull this off by January 1. I think it would be reckless. But I do think that we can put together a project and come back to you with a recommendation at a later time.
Super, Chief. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness that you're going through to look at this, and I do believe that it's a great idea to go out and find out what other organizations are doing and what it costs them to do the functions that are listed on this. But I know that Commissioner Howell heard from some of your firefighters that this is something that they were wanting, so I think it was appropriate to look at it. But I think we need more detailed analysis before we jump into it and make any decisions to move forward with it. Yeah. So, any other comments from the Commission? Seeing none, move to receive and file. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Aye. Commissioner Cruz. Aye. Commissioner Howell. Aye. Commissioner Lopez. Aye. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item F, 2023 budget discussion.
I did not hear anything by 5 o'clock yesterday to discuss on this issue, so Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda.
And I move that we defer item golf for a future date. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Oh, certainly. We're deferring this to a future date as a result of our deferral of a similar item on the regular agenda today. So we're trying to keep these two going together. So that's why we're deferring it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Commissioner Cruz.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez. Chairman Dennis.
Aye. Anything else need to come before the Board of Fire District Number 1? Seeing nothing, we're going to adjourn Board of Fire District Number 1 at this time. We'll call back to order the Sedgwick County Board of County Commissioners meeting. We would have had an executive session planned, but I don't believe we're going to have enough time for an executive session today. We will schedule the item that was going to be on that for possibly the next meeting. I think that that'd probably be the best time to do it. So we're not going to call the executive session today. Any commissioners have anything that needs to come before the Board of County Commissioners today? Seeing nothing, we're adjourned. Thanks everyone for being here.